tonight's episode, Triangle of Terror.
Oh, I'm not even connected. So now I'm in here and the screen is connected. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be watching this at. So we're going live and we have the window open here on the screen. And, oh, you know what? Oh, I'll just use that as a commercial later. We have a poll going. We got one vote. Should these shows have their own intro? Now we're ending the poll with one vote. I'm guessing that one vote is this dude. Woods. No one's actually met him, but we believe he is human. All right, so we're here to read ATF comments. And first thing we'll do, now that we're sharing the screen, is to look at the description of this video. We're going to right-click and open in new tabs the 2 comment periods. I guess I could have opened them in a new window because now I'm going to drag them into their own windows. Don't be scared. I have a lot of desktop space here. I have a wider monitor than regular people. So I've got this and this open over here. Now we're going to go back to the video that you're watching right now. We're operating on your own chest. We're now editing the video that you're watching. Don't be scared. No one's ever done this in front of you before, but that's how we roll. Now we're editing this video. One of the things we do in this series, because every other couple of days or so we go in and monitor in order to be able to have finger on the pulse of what's happening over here. We monitor how these comment periods are going. So what I do is I take the data from the last video, the last time we addressed this, and we compare the numbers here, which would be sort of the odometer the last time we used it, to what's happening today. Now, the last time we went live was like Friday or Saturday, so that would have been, Foss is listening from a car. So here's the thing. If you're going to watch something on YouTube, you can watch it in the house. You don't have to go outside in the driveway or whatever and watch it from your vehicle. Now, if you choose to, that's on you. But if you don't have to. But, whatever. So I think the last time was like Friday or Saturday. So it's been a couple of days. It's been over the weekend. And I wasn't able to do it yesterday because they infringed on me. I was infringed upon. So, because every second matters. So we're going to see what we've got today. First, we'll go to the redefinition of firearms, because that's the most important and the one that's been more neglected by our community, and the one that's been more attacked by the antis. This is the one that we're going to lose. So we're going to watch this one fail in front of us. It isn't even slowly anymore. It's like first it was slowly, and now it's just faster and faster. So we're going to watch the wreckage here on the redefinition of firearms. Last week, the last time we looked, we had 97,936 comments. Right now, 103,903. This is unprecedented. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to copy that number, and we're not going to remove. How are we going to do this? We're going to just, I'm going to put it here, and then up from, there we go. So now we can actually see the 2 numbers next to each other, and you people will be able to see it as soon as I save this. Right now you can't see it because I haven't clicked save, but now I saved it, and now you can see it on the description of the video. So anyway, that's kind of interesting. We've never done that before, and I don't know why. But now we're going to look at the number that they've okayed for approved, or they've approved for reading or whatever, and it's an unprecedentedly high ratio this year, and it stayed that way. So somehow they were able to accept 6,000 comments. They've only got 100,000. So that's 6% of what is there. They took that many comments, 6% of the comments in one day, and then they approved. It went from 96,000 to 101, 66, 0, and then type in So now we have pretty much the same, not the same. It would be 96 to, I don't know, 5,000 more that were approved. Shenanigans. There's some sort of chicanery. I don't know the right word, but there's corruption. It's absolutely being corrupted in front of our eyes. That'll be interesting to read. So unlike some of the days when we've read this and it's been hundreds, right? There's been days where it's like hundreds. This time it's whatever I just said, 6,000. It should be 2004, so 6,000. Yeah, 6,000. All right, now we're going to go over to stabilizing braces and do basically the exact same thing. Last week, when we last checked in, there had been 122,934, let's just say 123,000 comments. There are now 124,000 comments. So what does that tell us? That the industry and everybody else has just given up on this, because this one was winning and now it's just sat there. 2,000 comments while the other one got 6,000 comments. Somebody was like, well, I'm going to leave a comment for the one, but not for the other one. That makes me think that there's 6,000 antis. I saw a couple of posts on Instagram of people that follow the antis every town for wanting more crime or whatever. And they have some sort of like 2-click process now. So we'll see if we're swarmed by anti-comments or if that's good guy comments. Let's see how many are approved for the braces. 123.83. So 123,3,83 up from. Oh, that's horrible. Everything about this is fake and wrong, and it's obviously an infringement. Now that it's saved, though, you can see what I've been doing right now, which is updating it. I think we're going to do it like this from now on so that people have to go back and forth. See, this is the evolution of convenience in developing right in front of your face. All right, so now we're going to go back to this video. I guess there's no reason to really. Now on so that people have to go back and forth. See this? All right, but now you have some more data down here. So I'm skeptical of that data. I'm concerned about that data, and I believe that we're being infringed. That data proves it. All right, now let's read some comments. We had a poll going earlier, and I was going to do another poll, but now there's such chicken that I don't even remember what my poll was going to be. If you remember what my poll was going to be, let me know. Otherwise, I'm curious to see what this comment is. Night Strike saying hey to a comment I put in there about he's lording it over us that he has a May 14 or whatever, an M14. All right, so we're going to go into the comments tab of the redefinition of firearms receiver, and we're going to flip the comments to newest to oldest, and I am kind of nervous here. I'm kind of stressed out because I'm concerned on what we're going to see here. Oh, okay. Let's do that poll just to find out the level of stress. How stressed are you over these weird comment numbers? I'll even spell weird right for you. Let's say 80%. What the hell? I'm going to have to put on some mosquito candles. Again, this attack mosquito. 80% concerned. Let's say, what's another number? 60% concerned. 30% concerned. And then I'm going to put in here 0% concerned, because you know there's people out there that don't give a damn about nothing. There you go. So we've got, according to the narcs, 6 people. Look how some narc ran out of here. As soon as I put up a poll, we know that the narcs aren't allowed to answer polls, right? Their sergeants won't let them. So they have to book out of here as soon as they see a poll, otherwise it outs them. So of the humans that show up, we'll see how stressed people are over these weird comic numbers. 80%, that's irrational. I'm sorry to hear that there's somebody out there that's that upset. I don't believe it's one of you two people. It's probably a narc trying to upset the system. Although, as an undercover narc, they shouldn't be able to use the poll. I believe that's illegal. All right, so with that, we will, I guess, shove this over here somewhere, and we'll go back and cook. Let that poll cook for a little while, and we'll start reading these comments that are going to be horrible. Let's see. Woods is saying, should we expect more anti just before the end, like a huge jump right before the comment period ends? I think we'd be dumb as hell to not anticipate that. Like, we should be expecting it. Like, we should expect every right move, right? Like, for them, like every move that would be the worst against us, we should be thinking about. I think we could have prevented that by overwhelmingly dominating this. In other words, having so many comments posted that they knew it was futile, so they just ignored it and went home and cried. We could have avoided this completely by having a national level organization have the cojones, you can look that up on Google Translate, to stand up to the NFA, to challenge the NFA. We had hearing suppressors back in 2018 before they gave it away, and I mean they, the stupid representatives that just dropped it off the table after an atrocity was exploited. And we had the Hearing Protection Act that would have removed suppressors from the thing. The bump stocks, we won that court case. We own that. So that's machine guns off the registry. Short barrel rifles, come on, this is the second time they're desperately trying to use loopholes to go after braces. We own short barrel rifles. What else is there? We have 9mm. Those are any other weapons. They don't even look like a real gun. They're Wonder 9s. Crying out loud. Oh yeah, we're dead. Comment 100,915. Dear ATF, I'm writing in support. She puts her name on there. I'm writing in support. Complete thing with the real name in there. I'm writing in support. Name on there. I'm writing in support. Boilerplate name on there. I'm writing in support. 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 25 in a row. I'm writing in support. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's 2 paragraphs, and they're putting in their own paragraph and their own sincerely and Trisha blah blah blah, right? So what are you looking at right here? Real life, real 2A? Is somebody going to leak this? Is somebody going to exploit this somehow? Is this going to be a thing that gets people riled up? Or are we just going to not watch this? Like, let's ignore this, right? Hi, my name is blah blah blah. In my opinion, federal, we should concentrating on illegal guns, criminals, loots, rioting, illegal border crossings. Okay, so this is interesting. I don't want to put this guy's name in case this video goes weird, but I can't do nothing about it. Government does not represent. It is time to concentrate your efforts on criminals, not law-abiding citizens. So that's 1 out of 25 that isn't the same boilerplate. All right, so I'm not going to cause an alarm because I'm not going to read all of these. But yeah, there we go. We now see, because we've been doing this for a while, that the last 4,000 that came in, is there any reason to believe that those 4,000 aren't gaming the system here? I'm going to go in and delete those 25. I guess we'll verify it real quick. So that's 1 out of 25 that aren't that boilerplate from every town. Now I'm going to page 3 because it's a decent odd number. And we'll just right click and open in a new tab again. Oh yeah, here we go. So now I've brought in an orchestra today to make it easier for you to accept this infringement. Now you're going to have to engrave the upper on your AR-15 because that's a dangerous part. And the bolt carrier is near the trigger, so you're going to need to engrave that. Here's the thing. I don't want it to be confusing, so we're going to come up with a serial number for the unit and then the individual part serial number. They'll need to be sequential. The part serial numbers will need to be sequential subsets of the main serial number, so it will look like you're repeating the same serial number with a dash behind it, but pay no attention to the cost or complication of that. Even on the smallest of parts, you'll develop new micro stamping, and then it require you to use that on your ammunition in the future. Oh, we got an error, so they're using this thing so much, or it's such weak servers that it won't even let me open up 25 things to verify that all of these are, I'm writing in support, 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 I'm writing in support. Dear head of BATF, what kind of dumbass is Bert that he doesn't realize they're also trying to appoint a head of ATF, dumbass? I'm writing in support, I'm writing in support, I'm writing in support, I'm writing in support. It's almost like if I was trying to create a bunch of in support, in support, in support, in support. Well, so there we go. They won because they are able to click on boilerplates, or do boilerplates not matter? They're using it, and I'm guessing there's some method to some madness here. We know that the situation is different than past comment periods because the ratio of approved comments is unprecedentedly more, a higher percentage or higher ratio of the comments are being approved. So in other words, if 100 comments come in, 99 of them are being approved. Actually, 99.5 are being approved at this point. Oh, I'm skeptical. Oh, I'm sus. I'm sus. My dog's wagging her tail over there, and we're being infringed upon. What the hell? Why are you so happy about this infringement? I gotta go over there and see what's up. I think she's sick. Hold on. Why are you wagging your tail? She doesn't usually flap a tail around, so I had to make sure she wasn't messed up or something. No, they've got some sort of drive right now to encourage their people to click. I guess they're 2 clicks away from sending in a comment, and you can see that it's effective. So I don't think it's a bot, but it's just a campaign. Like Woods was saying earlier, that last surge, they had to see that 100,000 came in. People are going to maybe ignore this, or when they get a panel discussion together and regurgitate what they've watched instead of researching themselves, they'll say things like, oh, let's compare it with past comment periods or some such foolery. These are unique situations. There's 2 comment periods at the same time. We have a administration that desperately needs to divert attention away from, I don't know, like a pouring in of millions of people that aren't vaccinated into a population that's concerned about many aspects of that, and they desperately need firearms to be the whipping boy of their attention and all that. So we're not dealing with a typical situation, and I don't know. Let's go look at that poll and see how worried people are about it. So we've got a poll running. If you're not familiar, the polls are, I don't know, you click on it and you participate in it. I'm asking how stressed people are over the numbers. So back in the beginning of the show, we just saw that there's such a weird amount of comments that have been coming in, and then a high ratio of comments that are approved. So I don't know if Crump just showed up, but this dude here is writer for Ammo Land and whatnot. I don't know if you just showed up, Crump, but we've got 4,000 new comments to the frames and receivers. And if I go back and look at my history over here, what we'll find is of the 50 that I just opened, 1 was anti-infringement. The rest were all every town for gun violence boilerplates. I guess I'll read the boilerplate for the record. This one is comment number 100,001 and 4. So 101004. Dear Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, I am writing in support of the ATF's proposed rule, docket number ATF 2021 R-05, that would help stem the rise of ghost guns. We need to stop guns that can't be traced. This proposed rule is a win for public safety and a loss for any criminal or extremists who wanted to buy untraceable guns with no background checks and no questions asked. Ghost guns may be the scariest and fastest growing gun threat in the country, allowing anyone to make an untraceable weapon in less than an hour. Additionally, they have emerged as the weapon of choice for violent criminals, gun traffickers, dangerous extremists, and other people legally prohibited from buying firearms. I urge the ATF to finalize this rule and protect public safety respectfully and sincerely. And then each one has a different signature on it, and then each one will add sometimes a little bit different boilerplate. So if you were to take some of the boilerplate that would help stem the rise of ghost guns, for example, and put that into a search engine, what you'll find is it comes up to every town, and what they have is this form that you can fill out to let them know, to let every town, to be put on their email list. But what they do is give you this button here that says submit. It takes you to plain old regulations.gov. So here's if you want to submit to this one. Boom. And then they give you what to say here. So if you see, it'll say, I am writing in support of the ATF's proposed rule, right? And then depending on how much they copy and paste here is how much goes into the comment. So they're not quite the same kind of boilerplate plugin thing that they got going on our side, but this kind of creates, somebody takes that, and then some of them are taking this first sentence and then this sentence, so they're taking little different patchwork pieces of this and creating effectively boilerplate. But more importantly, something like 4,000 comments, 6,000 comments came in since the last time I checked this stuff. So the redefinition of firearms had been, actually, I'll go in now on a spreadsheet. I don't know if you want me to do that live or not. So let's go over here, and what's this? Is she winning? Did she just pole vault into victory? Shannon, damn it. So let's kill this poll. So basically the results of this poll are 7 votes. So here's the deal. 10 people watching this and me, right? So that's 9. Oh, now it's 8 because I'm talking about the polls. The narcs have to leave. So now there's that narc came right back. So we got 9 people watching this, only 7 votes. So we know that there's 2 narcs in here that aren't voting. They're not allowed to vote. So out of those 7 votes, 3, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 3 people don't think there's any reason to be stressed about weird comment numbers. 2 people think that there's a 30% reason to be stressed, and then 1 person stressed to 60%, and 1 person is unfortunately stressed to 80%. So, now there's 2 people stressed up there. I don't think there's need to be stressed to 80%. This is just, working around one little thing that really is kind of inconsequential, but it's an indication of how well we're able to work together, how well we're able to message and motivate, right? So it's not like it's the end of the world, but it is annoying that they're winning. It'd be funner to see us just dominate everywhere. So now we'll put up a poll that says, should we together make a graph of these numbers? Live. Oops. You always have to put live in capitals, otherwise people think you're just typing live. And a question mark. Yes and no. And then one for because there's sometimes we'll answer that one and then we'll know. All right, so there's the poll. Here's the what do you call it? The ATF paradox. They're not allowed to answer the poll. Missed the notification. Thanks for going live. I gotta go over here. Whatever. I know what they're doing. Oh, you're saying you know what's going on. So let me give him a link here. This work. Paste there, and then whenever he jumps in. I guess if one other person wants to jump in, go ahead. And then we'll do this poll to see if we should come up with a graph. FYI, I figured out how to make graph on my spreadsheet software, so I can make a real graph out of it. It's something I'll do off air or not, but till then, we'll jump in and read some of the stabilizing grace ones. Here's Chrome. All right, what do you think is going on over here? Oh, see, he's scared. He's an ATF plant. What is that? Narc, 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 narc. I didn't realize somebody that is both the inheritance of the entire Amazon fortune, because of he's somehow like the only living what's the word? Anyway, he's the only one that's going to inherit the entire Amazon fortune, but he also works for the ATF. Oh, now he jumped back in. All right, what's going on?
Hold on.
I can hear you. I can hear you. No, now I can't hear you. Before we did hear you, it was fine. Now you muted yourself.
All right, technical difficulties on my end, but everything's fixed now, I think.
Yeah, you're good. What's up? What do you think's happening?
What is happening is what they are doing is I think they held all their comments that people submitted until now, and now that we're getting down to 0 hour, they're blowing it up by releasing all their comments to the regulations.gov to make it look like they have more comments than what they really do.
I don't know what you're saying. So I've been watching it now, and it's been increasingly growing. So you're saying that they would have had comments that they didn't even count as having been received, and then waited to drop those as if they just got dropped today?
Well, every town held them.
Okay, now that I don't think that works though, because if you go to search for the boilerplate words that they're using, that takes you to that every town page, and they don't use, like, GOA has a form that you guys are paying for, that interacts with whatever regulations.gov somehow, like you guys are paying for that access, the API. They don't have an API. They just have here's the link, and it takes you to regulations.gov that I linked in here before, and then they just give you stuff to copy and paste, basically, or to drag and drop. So what people are doing is having to click on that manually. But I have had, in the last couple of days, people on Instagram send me screenshots of emails that every town has been sending out. So I do think that they're putting a big push to their people. Right
Well, they are putting it. It's right on the front page now.
Okay, of their website and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's telling us that their mobilization, if everything, who knows what they're doing weird, what the ATF is doing, or I guess what regulations or whoever would be complicit in this. But according to our numbers, this was at 96,000. Let me go to it. But anyway, something like 6,000 comments came in. It was at 97,000 when I checked on Friday, and then I didn't check yesterday, so that's the weekend, right? And over the weekend, it went from 98,000 to 94 or to 104,000. So effectively 6,000 comments came in. So if that's telling us that every town, with everything that they can muster, they can bring in 6,000 comments to the ATF. And that's in comparison to the 100,000 that have come in, over the last however many 60 days. I still don't think that's 100,000 is anywhere near enough, but they're 4,000. It's annoying, and whatever, I did that poll a second ago. I think I'm probably 30% upset, and I'm not upset about their punch as much as the fact that the way I anticipate we're going to react. There's going to be people that just see or just hear that a bunch of every town numbers came in, 4,000 or 6,000, and then they'll give up. Oh, it's over. And then there's people that'll go, oh, well, the comment periods don't matter. So we shouldn't even fight over there. You know what I mean? We're just going to come up with these weird loser excuses, and that's frustrating. So that's what I'm most.
No, if you go to their website, and just verify this, and you click submit comment right on the front page, it takes you to their to where you enter the information. They're using fast action. And I definitely do think that they're holding that back.
Hold on. So you're saying submit a comment to Ghost Guns? Oh, no. Yeah. Okay, hold on. This is different. So let me show you what I was doing before. So I went into my history and just opened up a random, of the 50 that I looked at, 48 of them were freaking the same one. So I just took, that would help the rise of Ghost Guns, that little segment of or fragment of a sentence or whatever, and threw that into a browser, and it takes you to this page on every town. So this is what I'd been looking at. This takes you to a button where you can click on goes straight to regulations as a raw import, and then you would highlight this stuff that's their boilerplate and copy and paste it. But what you found is on their main page, Let me go back and look at their main page. If you click on this, which is like, all they have to do is say, go to our main page on like the Oprah show, and everybody goes there and clicks on submit. What did you call this? Fast something?
Yeah, fast action.
So this is an API, so an interface directly with regulations.gov, so that when you type in your information here, and don't type in your information here, two things happen. It's like a double action. Every town is going to have your info so that they can market you and sell you, and then the form does get submitted. Now, it looks like they can personalize it down here, and that's where they're probably urging them to put their own name or something. Or no, they're putting it in there. So they're not even asking. They're putting the person's name in the public message. What an unscrupulous thing to do if they didn't mention that to people. But yeah, anyway.
But they can hold this back.
Yes, exactly. So this is going into their pile. They can decide. So every town can decide. So yeah, I can totally understand what you're saying now, that they could have been harvesting these for the entire 60 days and decided to drop them over the weekend or something in some sort of weird strategy, right? Interesting. So again, that's telling us that the most they can muster, unless something changes in the next couple of days, is 6,000 comments to our 100,000.
Yeah, what they're trying to do is they're trying to backload all the comments to make it look like they have more support than what they do.
Right, because now if someone were to dig in and say most recent and just start digging in, all they're going to find is like 48 of theirs to 2 of ours, and no one's going to dig in, 7,000 pages deep and get into it. So yeah, they're basically painting their paint on the top, on the surface.
Correct.
In Planet, so it says is get some 67 is saying, I get what he's saying. They waited until the last minute because a lot of times the last ones to speak are the ones that get heard. Plus, it drowns out the latest anti comments if someone searches them by latest post. No, yeah, I hear what you guys are saying.
Correct. So that's exactly what they're doing.
It's not over. So what I'm scared is, let's go back to the comment, because we're only talking about the redefinition of firearms receivers. For some reason, they haven't gone after braces. They do have 36 more days, so they could be.
They're going to do that. They're going to do that. They're going to wait till this is done, and then they're probably going to do the same thing.
Yeah, one at a time. So when we look at this, what was I going to go look at? We got 16 days left. So if they dropped 4,000, I don't know when. I wish now that I would have done this yesterday. Damn it, I'm not 2A enough. If I would have been doing this every single day, we'd have better data. But we know that over the last 4 days, they've dropped 6,000. We don't know if that's like 2,000 a day, if that was 6,000 this morning or what. So if this is an indication that for the next 16 days, they're going to drop 2,000 a day, then somebody'd have to do some math and figure out what kind of trouble we're in. Now, if this was their whole load, then that's something different. They wouldn't drop their load 16 days before, right? So this could be an indication that they've got a big pile, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that they're going to spread it out a little bit.
So with that in mind, let's go back to the thing and see what people's concerns are now that you got more info. So first off, we did one on should we make a graph, and I think I will because we got 71%, and somehow see that person isn't a narc because a narc isn't allowed. It's just like when you are talking to a cop in real life. If you ask them if they're a cop, if they're an undercover cop, they got to say yes. So they can't comment on these polls.
No, they can. That's not true. They can. They can lie.
More than one movie. Seen it in more than one movie. So
they can lie, but a lot of people believe that, and if you believe that, you can go to jail. And I've reported on a lot of cases where people said, "Are you an undercover ATF agent?" And the ATF agent goes, "No," and they're like, "Well, I saw it in a movie that you have to tell me if I ask." So
exactly.
Assume you're not. That would be the easiest way. I wish it was like that, actually.
So we're gonna. I think it was at one time. I think that's where it came from, and then they figured out like that's kind of dumb. But I don't know. Here's another thing though. Since we're kind of talking about it, I know we're kidding around, but one of my podcasts I really like to listen to is called Mic Drop. It's a Navy SEAL dog handler, and he does a really neat show that kind of brings people in from military predominantly, but not always. And one of the people he interviewed, and he does like a long format interview. He interviewed the guy that ran Texas's Rangers, the Texas Rangers, and the international crimes. However, Texas deals with international crimes, and this guy had an amazing interview. And one of the things he brought up is the way that the government tracks crime, and where I was going with that. But basically, I think that there's lots of angles on crime and law enforcement. Oh, I guess what I was going to say is in that interview, he mentioned that the way that law enforcement had typically played out in the past was they suspect somebody doing a crime, so they investigate, they create evidence, and then they prosecute and they go to court and all that. And, I guess that format or that process or that procedure is just too easy for criminals to sidestep or to just not even, it doesn't really apply when you're talking about some of the computer crimes and weird smuggling things that happen, people that don't have to worry about laws that we have to worry about and stuff. So anyway, there's some interesting stuff, and I'm not relating it clearly, but some interesting stuff on how if we continue to fight crime the way we had in the past, it doesn't work because it costs the government so much money to do surveillance and gather evidence, and then let's say they were wrong, and then they just spent a bunch of time and money for no reason. And best you can hope for is that they learned what not to do next time. So anyway, there's just like inefficiencies and ineffectiveness for law enforcement, and I'm wondering what's going to happen in the future. As we have things like phones and stuff that as soon as they make the right agreement with the right company, everybody's got a big brother in their pocket. And is there really crime when they can just go backwards and listen to everything anybody ever said?
Yeah. Hey, AG Webs, I got a question for you.
Sure.
Do you have one of these patches?
No, is that that's a red one. No, I was thinking that was your FOI Future Felons one. No, I don't have one of them.
No, I have one. Yeah, I'm going to send you a couple FFOA patches and not a machine gun patch too.
Love it. Yeah, that's good. Because I was just saying earlier that, now that we've got the bump stocks taken to the Supreme Court and challenged
it's not going to, it's going to en banc on the 6th, in the 6th Circuit.
Okay, on the way, I should say then, but it's now that has some traction and it's not just, we haven't given up on it. It's not like a done deal. Then we've got that angle on getting rid of the NFA. We had the Hearing Protection Act almost all the way through back in 18 or whenever it was that we got dropped, right? So we've got more than one reason or more than one angle to get rid of the NFA. And that's what I'm looking for, is when people realize that this attempt by every town to do this is weak for one thing, but it's also an indication that they got nothing else. They desperately need firearms to be the punching bag for everything, so that they can take their aggressions out on it, so that they can distract, right? And the best they could come up with is manipulating a comment period on regulations.gov, which is, as we're watching, potentially as easy as just paying enough money to have a system that lets you decide when the comments go through. Like GOA could have done this, you just don't do it that way. But you're using a similar type of interface with the government. You got to pay for it, of course, but it makes it easier for everybody. So there's a reason you pay for it. But yeah, you can weaponize that service, right? And you guys are trying to just allow people to do it, and you want somebody's comment to be there, I'm assuming, or whatever your justifications or reasonings were. But you're pushing your comments through in real time, where who knows what kind of pokiness they're playing over here.
Yeah, we're not holding back any comments. We could if we wanted to, but we're not, because we're getting a lot of comments. Out of the 100,000 comments on pistol braces, I think I know a week ago we were at 60,000 comments through our system, or 2 weeks ago we were 60,000. So over 60,000 of those comments came directly from the GOA app or whatever, our website.
Yeah, I would notice that. I would say, well, I don't know. I guess I haven't been paying that close attention, but I would think if I had to make a guess that it would be about 40% handwritten and 60% boilerplate, like the click the button type of forms. but you guys do the thing the same as they do, where you can change a paragraph or whatever, add a paragraph. Actually, you guys changed it to where you can add a paragraph, but the boilerplate stays the same. Back in 2 comment periods ago, you had more like a big form where you could change it and anyway, strip it out and stuff.
Yeah,
but anyhow,
the old place that we're using, they decided they didn't want to do business with gun rights organizations.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. So the things that we're talking about, these interfaces, are not little, and that's interesting because that's a type of political game right there. Because they're not the only ones, obviously, but there's few of those, and if they all decided to play political games, then that would cut access.
Yeah, we're using voter voice right now, which is I don't see them doing that. Voter voice is pretty good when it comes to like gun rights. A lot of gun rights organizations are using voter voice because they have a policy where they embrace the Second Amendment, I should say. I mean, they'll let the other side use it too, but they're not picking side.
That's what it said. Yeah, they're willing to let both voices be heard, or voices be heard.
And that's part of their core company, their core company focus.
So Woods brings up a good point about it's all about the fear. Just look at the specific words used in their Bloomberg comments. So yeah, I've threatened to do this before, but I haven't. But since we got it on the screen, so depending on which way you go on this one that I was using it as an example, the way I found that they were doing it, they just have some boilerplate kind of stuff written here. So it starts off with, I am writing in support of the ATF's proposed rule that would help stem the rise of ghost guns. Well, right off the bat, it doesn't help stem the rise of nothing, and there is no rise, and ghost guns itself is manipulative. So yeah, right in the first sentence that everyone is basically using on their side, it is wrong. Next, and then it's also writing in support of the ATF's proposed rule. Hell yeah, it's their proposed rule, not the Congress's law, right? So right in there, they're like, I'm down for misappropriation of the executive branch's power, right? Then, and at least I'm down for disregarding this abuse, right? Then they say the proposed rule is a win for public safety, like with no justification, just because that feels good to say it, and a loss for any criminals or extremists who wanted to buy untraceable guns with no background check and no questions asked. Well, F you for the connotation that wanting to purchase property without hassle is somehow with criminal intent. So every time they buy anything that isn't the most complicated or taxed way, they're doing it with potential criminal intent, and we should raise our eyebrows. So yeah, exactly. They're doing this wording so that the person writing it can get off on their like power trip, because these people use government as a weapon against other people, not as a other people would intend it for, is just a thing to the roads or whatever. So the next thing is those guns may be the scariest and fastest growing gun safety threat. Well, they're not scary unless you got a phobic reaction to property. Or you have a disproportionate, like phobia, I guess, against other people, or you've got some kind of serious mental condition where you're that worried about, with no justification, what other people might do. Or maybe, if you're manipulated by news stories, you only look at single issues or the extremes and then extrapolate that to everybody. That's your own problem, and they're either laying into that or, well, they're just laying into that. Fastest growing, so they don't know. There's no stuff out there that even compares whatever safety threats might be, let alone gun safety threats. Gun safety threat is a nonsense thing. Just, they've come up with it knowing how mammals' brains work and knowing how the English language work and knowing how they've decided their polling, the thing that invokes the most fear. That's this nonsense little set of words there. In the country, well, whatever, allowing anyone to make an untraceable weapon in less than an hour, ridiculous. So again, if you're completely naive and you don't care enough to even understand what you're using a weapon of government to beat on other people about, then sure. You know, just like everything you do that isn't heavily taxed or the most complicated is also untraceable, and everything that you think is a skilled thing, I think can just be done in less than an hour. I was just watching the Olympics, watching those little girls jump around between two bars. Anybody can do that. They don't even look like they're putting any effort into it. So anybody in less than an hour can master the uneven parallel bars because I've decided that. Okay, then ghost guns have emerged as a weapon of choice for violent criminals. Well, no, they haven't, because violent criminals have never required or covered any except for 4, and they are like from assumed sites. Like we see that in the attempt that the Everytown insisted that the ATF go through their records and tell them how many times the 80%ers were used, and they couldn't tell them. So they know that, and they're lying. So words as emerged as a weapon of choice is fake, lie, and they don't care. For violent criminals, again, that's a difficult thing, because violent criminals, weapon of choice of violent criminals is probably their hands, right? A violent criminal would use a club or whatever's handy. If you want to say gun crimes, they can't, right? And if they want to say violent crimes, it's even more inaccurate. Like, it's seriously not more popular than pistol or fists. So violent criminals is like the worst word they could use. Gun traffickers, who knows what they think a gun trafficker is? You know, people driving between a competition, going to a gun show. You know, somebody driving from their location to a gun show, is that a gun trafficker to them because for a moment in time they had 70 guns in their vehicle? Dangerous extremists, of course, is the new Overton window attempt to call anybody who's uses the words patriot, like, it's just ridiculous what they're doing with that. But again, we've seen it happen before. So if we're going to stand there and watch it, then you're part of it. Or you can start using all the tools that we have available to us to push against this. Not only is it going to make us stronger, but they're wimpy. That as soon as we show resistance, they go away. These last desperate attempts are proof of that. These other people, this is the worst part, and that's why I decided to read this whole one, because this is the worst connotation of the whole thing. So they say ghost guns have emerged as a weapon of choice for violent criminals, gun trafficker, dangerous extremists. Okay, if we take all that in at the surface, then they add, and other people legally prohibited from buying firearms. Well, F them and the horse they rode in on, because they're suggesting that violent criminals, gun traffickers, and dangerous extremists are automatically legally prohibited from buying firearms. Well, you know what? They may not be. So this is just some weird connotation they're trying to throw on it, especially if you count anybody who like salutes a flag as a dangerous extremist, which they probably would. And, somebody who's punching somebody in the street, does that make them prohibited from buying firearms? Probably not. Like, I don't live in a world where the government says you're violent enough to not be able to own a gun, and I don't want to live in a world where the government can just look through a camera and say you've been violent enough times that you can't own a gun anymore. That's weird and creepy and like way beyond 1984. So I just don't like this like connotation, especially when we know that what they're calling extremists, they're putting in a pile of people legally prohibited from buying firearms. They're just setting up such a weird scenario there. Then under regulation of these core parts, the ghost guns, fastest growing gun safety problem facing our country. Again, just garbage made up. What's the word for that? Like hype. So it's sad. And they also have to put the scariest and the fastest growing safety threat. So, I mean, they've only got 3 points to offer and they're reiterating the same thing. So really they only have like 1 point to offer: public safety, gun safety, and safety. So basically it's just not even a new strategy. So I get you that it's, what do you start the thing with? It's all about fear. But I'm also looking at it as they have whatever their toolbox is. They didn't even pick the most interesting or new tools. They went back to old standby garbage. It's like they're phoning it in. Unfortunately, they're phoning it in. And like I said, I think our side in the past has either reacted with like, oh, I'm going to quit. Oh, I'm going to ignore it. Or like, oh, I'm just going to talk smack about it and, worry about something else tomorrow. Like, we don't usually see stuff like this and go, oh, this is easy to eliminate, and just eliminate it, right? We haven't done that yet. It's an opportunity to do that, though.
Yeah, it definitely is. They definitely do capitalize on fear, but they have a lot of dirty tricks that they do. And did you hear what happened with me with the ATF, by the way?
Like when?
Like when I went and tried to introduce myself.
Oh, you mean over at that gun show or whatever?
Yeah, and they talked to me until I said, and they asked me what my name was, and I was like John Crump, and then they were like, "Go, time to go."
My experience is when I started going reviewing shows, it's 2009. I started. Well, I've noticed that the ATF was at SHOT Show, and in 2009 in Florida, we spent a lot of money going to Florida because we're in Tucson, and back then there was no money coming in, so that was like just kind of to do it, and then sort of an investment. And if we can continue to do this kind of thing, traveling, let's see how we do it. So anyway, because I had put a lot of money into going to Florida, I wanted to get as much out of SHOT Show as I could. And I had two guys there with me, and I was kind of at a time when I don't want to call it, like I didn't have anything else to do really. I was kind of like had a minute to do whatever I felt like. And SHOT Show in Florida that year was kind of an L, kind of like a long L shape kind of a thing. Anyway, the ATF was over in this like corner, and I decided I'm going to go talk to the ATF. So I went over there and asked them, I think something like, what the hell was I interested in back then? I think I was interested in the amount of 4473 denials that are actually criminals versus, like, my experience working in gun shops, hanging out in gun shops, is most of the denials are like, oh, I didn't know I had that ticket, or oh, I still didn't get that off my record, or like, oh, wait a minute, yeah, I'm a felon, what? Because like some misdemeanor turned into a felony from neglect or something.
Yeah, I have that statistic if you ever want it.
Well, it changes, so thanks. But yeah, it's interesting because it's basically, unless it's changed, it's basically like, oh, all the denials, like 99% of the denials are like a mistake or a check the wrong box, or it's a different person. Because by law, they're not allowed to database this stuff, so it has to be on dumb systems, and they use last names and stuff. So if you got the same last name as a bad guy, you're going to get dinged more than if you got like a really unique last name or something. So anyway, yeah, I asked him that question, and it was like, I said, and then he answered me, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, I had no idea it was that low. Would you mind doing that on video? And then he did. And because I asked kind of a dumbass nothing question, then nobody cared. And then a couple of years later, and then so that was my thing. Like, I guess I didn't intend to, but I did this interview with ATF, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, now I'm going to do that more often. Or I guess I should say I started to do that every time I went to a big show. Now, in talking to them, what I found out is, the ATF is tasked as the executive branch with two things, both enforcement and regulation. So they send compliance people, they send regulatory people to places like SHOT Show, because SHOT Show is an industry event. It's now kind of a media event, but it's only got 2,000 people that show up as media, or 2,500 on a big year. It has something like 60,000 people show up between the industry that shows up to man the booths and walk around between the booths. So the show is an industry show for the industry, to facilitate the industry. And part of that is the dealing with the regulations. So when, let's say somebody's got a question, hey, I want to build this part for you. Do I need a variance? Can I build that? Do I have to have something on the premises? They can walk over to ATF and get those regulatory type of questions answered and addressed. However, ATF has, like I say, the enforcement branch. And from what I've been told, okay, here's another thing. They also have a PR branch. So what we talk to often when we're bringing cameras in, SHOT Show changed to video in like 2011 pretty much. So before 2011, getting video with the ATF was no big deal because nobody was scared of it yet. But as soon as everybody was bringing video cameras to SHOT Show, and it changed the dynamic of the coverage of SHOT Show, and it was immediate, and the ATF was screwing with us more, they didn't want any gotcha shit. So they started only letting their PR people talk to media, because those people were prepared and ready, and there was never any regulation people there, like enforcement, I should say. There's hardly ever any. And only enforcement people would be going around trying to bust people for doing stuff, like they'd be on the job. Nobody was manning the booths in the enforcement part, at least as far as we're told. So it was a couple years later, after 2009 in Florida, SHOT Show went to Stupid Sands, the horrible facility that it's in now, compared to the other facilities that it's been held in over the years. And ever since it's been in Sands, the ATF has been downstairs in the same place. And Sands was 2010. So in 2015 is when the braces happened. And from 2010 to 2015, if you go back and watch my coverage of SHOT Show, you'll see at least one video from ATF. And it's usually something like, why does the ATF do this? I'm not like a gotcha in your face. I just wanted to clarify something that had maybe come up in conversation or something I thought was interesting, like, the number of whatever, that are not criminals that are getting hit by the NICS. I've always been against NICS. So, I've got these like informational or whatever, like things with SHOT Show, or I mean, with FBI and ATF, I guess it's SHOT Show, because they're together for stupid NICS questions. And, but like I say, at some point they either would not be at the booth or they'd require us to talk to their PR people. And then it's always convenient that the PR person's busy or not there, right? That's an easy like way to not have to do anything. It's just to blame or throw the burden on the PR person who doesn't have to show up. So it wasn't until 15 or 16 maybe that I was able to get, or I had an interest in and got an interview with ATF. And then we went into a hallway. They wouldn't let me film. I could do audio, and then I was asking them about the brace, because at that point, whenever I did the questioning, it was more like, it was the waiting periods for Form 4s and stuff. There's been fluctuations in the waiting times of Form 1s and 4s, just for all kinds of reasons over the years. So I think I asked them something about, because the waiting times had gone down to like almost nothing for a while there, and I forgot what the reasoning or what the situation was, but so I was basically throwing softball questions like, how were you able to get the wait time so low? Like, blah, blah, blah. Are the wait time's going to stay this low? It was basically like easy questions. And they still like kind of made it, at least compared to my earlier interviews with them, made it way more difficult or way more tedious to have a conversation with them. So I quit after that. I didn't even bother. There's enough other people covering it if someone legitimately has contacts with them, they'll get a better interview than me anyway. And then the problem is they've been screwing with us. So when they screw with us, we end up as a community screwing with them. I don't know if you guys remember the stuff that's been done to the ATF booth at SHOT Show, but they quit going to SHOT Show whenever there's a controversial year. Their booth will be empty. So that's their reaction to like screwing around and doing dumb things. For a while there, they would do dumb things like tell us we can't shoulder a brace the Friday before SHOT Show, and then like not understand why they had like their booth plastered with bumper stickers or stuff, like how they didn't understand why they were being mocked and made fun of and had all kinds of meme pictures taken of them and stuff, like not mean, but pictures made into memes based off of their bullying us days before. And then subsequent years they keep going back and forth on whether or not can shoulder a brace or whatever other stupid decisions they come up with. So like I say, at this point, it seems like if they think it's a controversial year, they just won't even show up at SHOT Show. So how frustrating is that for the actual industry that needs them there? Is that regulatory, access? It's disgraceful, in my opinion.
Especially when they drop something that's stupid and really
it's
clean.
Not like it's exactly weird, annoying, and they're going to need clarification, like the shouldering of braces. That was the year that it all broke, where they quit. They quit trying to keep the face or something because they were basically getting swarmed every single time I went past their booth, and I went down more than once that year to try to see what was happening and just to witness the amount of concern people had. So, I forget what year that was, 16, 17, 18, maybe 17, whenever they fluctuated on if you could hold a brace up to your shoulder or not. Everybody had a camera at SHOT Show that year. And at, 13, 14, 15, probably they quit caring who carries around a camera anymore. So just anybody who had a phone could just hold it out and nobody would really stop you. So basically every time I walked past the ATF booth, whatever year that was, it was just swarmed for the first couple of days. And then it was empty. They abandoned the booth and left. And then, like I say, at least twice, I think, they just didn't even show up to SHOT Show. And I always thought that was an indication of the lack of whatever the word would be, honor, usefulness, like not need for that division, like for that.
Well, they are the ATF.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like when your sole role is to be an interface with the government regulation and enforcement with the industry, and then you just don't show up, like you say, because they did something weird or they knew there was going to be problems. Like, stand up and, deal with the problems you created. But on the other hand, I don't know.
Yeah, they don't like dealing with the problems they created.
No, not at all. And that's the sad part, is that we don't hold them to that. We don't have to take it. We could have stood there. There could have been like easily there, the same way that there's like flash mobs. I don't know how Reddit works, but I assume Reddit could make a flash mob, for whatever, do stupid movie premiere or whatever they want to do it for. Like, why couldn't we do some sort of organizing, like standing at the ATF booth in protest? I remember I've done a 24-hour video, let a live 24-hour camera run, looking at an AK-47 in the corner, just because, the whole, like, I'm going to see if my gun does anything type of stuff, just to fool around. Like, we could easily have a bunch of people going live from the vacant ATF booth the entire time, just to symbolize, like, how frustrated we are that the ATF didn't show up. We shouldn't have to just ignore that they don't show up to shot you.
No, we shouldn't. But getting
people, if everybody took a 10-minute shift, all it would take is somebody initiating it, and then literally everybody could just go down there and take their 10-minute shift. It would turn into tons of 10-minute little videos and a bunch of Instagram posts, and people would come down and say hey, and then again they'd have to this black eye in the public relations that they. Anyway, I'm just saying we have opportunities like that. So think outside the box, everybody that's out there, and don't just get frustrated. Think about how we can, make the next move.
I talk to people, and a lot of them are afraid of the ATF. They're afraid that they're going to be targeted by the ATF. And you shouldn't be afraid that they're going to target you. Because chances are they're not going to target you. They haven't really messed with me on anything, and if anybody was going to get messed with by the ATF, it would probably be me.
If they, I don't know. You're also the one that everybody would assume the ATF is trying to mess with you, so they would probably, I don't know. I could see
that's true.
Have, what I'm saying? Like, they don't have the actual spotlight on them, then they might feel like, oh, okay, I could get knocked off the platform or whatever before I get to that spotlight. But whatever, I agree with you. I don't think they're active. They don't have the ability to get a nominee. Like, how do they have the ability to go out there and do stuff? When they attempt to do stuff, they inevitably get caught doing it because they don't work in coordination. It's not like there's a whole bunch of effective jackboots that work as a hive against us. They're just a bunch of people, and unfortunately, they have no leadership. So the horrible things that happen in that division are what takes the limelight. And it's probably like anything. When you get a reputation in a bureau, in this case, of inadequacy, bad, negative reputation for whatever reasons, why would anybody in their right mind want to go to that bureau anymore? Like, who's out there being like, the ATF's so important to me that I want to go back and restore its reputation? Like, does that person exist? And if they are, why aren't they more vocal? And why aren't they put out as like Captain ATF? Like, listen to this guy. He has passion and cares. No, they just put up the worst possible candidate possible. They're using it as a mechanism of abuse to us. Like, oh, you don't like government abuse and power? Well, guess what? We have a whole bureau for that. And it really just exists so that these people can poke these people. Here's an artificial rift, and here's a mechanism to use the government to poke at those people. It's perfect because it allows the people who hate us to pour money into the government and support into a government in hopes that they'll poke us with it. Every time we get poked, we encourage them. We need to be more resilient, like not react when we get poked.
Okay. For Lunatic out there, if you go to John Crump Live, there's a guest application. Just fill that out. That's how we keep track of everything.
What does it say? So they came for me before you, John. Look at my channel for yourself. Do you know this person? I've recognized the name, I think, but maybe it's just because there's Lunatic, and I don't know your story either, but I can remember this person's. So Woods is saying we've had way too many comments that you've read that basically read please make this infringement taste better, like make it less infringy, please. I've read a bunch like that. Yeah. Luckily, I think I've read about as many that say like make the infringement taste nicer, or feel better, as there is antis. Until this 4,000 or 6,000 antis came in, that's a whole different situation. But up until now, it's been. I think I figured it out just by doing the numbers that if there's 25 of these videos, and in this one I didn't read any comments because there was nothing to read. But if I've made 25 of these videos and I read 25 comments on both sides each time, I've read something like 1,200 comments. So for this like comment period session or whatever, and I think if I'm recollecting right, it's never more than like 5 or 10 at the most per show. So, you know, we're talking like maybe 5% have been antis. So I'm guessing about that many, even less, maybe 3% have been like, I'm okay with it, just make the infringement a little more comfortable. But I definitely get frustrated with those comments as well.
Yeah, so I definitely do too. Lunatic Writer 209, I am checking out your channel, just to let you know.
And it made it super difficult for people to, you used to be able to just click on the person's name.
Yeah, now you gotta freaking search them.
Yeah, it's stupid. And then because of these things, you're going to have to search those little dots too, I bet. So we had a poll going. We got 9 votes. There's 10 people watching, so that's legit. All the narcs are gone. How stressed are you about these comments? So of the 9 votes, it looks like, what, 4 came in here, 3 and 2 or something like that. So some people are stressed a lot. Some people are stressed not very much, and only a couple of people or one person may be stressed in the middle. I really don't think there's any reason to be stressed. I'm a little bit frustrated and annoyed, but I don't think I'm going to be stressed about these yet. But we kind of did a little preliminary look in what there's 16 days left. If it turns into like 2,000 a day for the next 16 days, I'd be frustrated. That would be something like 32,000 more comments. That would make it like a third of the comments. If they have more than that in store, there's no way they have 100,000. If they had 100,000 and doubled it and made it 50-50, that would make me raise my eyebrows and wonder what's going on.
No,
If
they're definitely not going to hit. Just from the support, they're not going to hit that at all. They have more money than us, but we have more grassroots activists than they do.
Yeah, and like I say, even if they were to somehow pay 100,000 people to go click a button for them or whatever, or figure it out how to make it happen, it would only be an inconsequential comment period. It would be annoying, but it would be an expense on their side, and it would be interesting why they put that much effort into it. And then to see them dominate it, like have 200,000 more comments come in, is just, I mean, that would be incredible. That would be different. I can't imagine that happening. But yeah, it will be interesting to see how the next 16 days go on this one.
I don't think they could do that. I think the API limits them.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, that's the thing. It would have to be gamed because well, yeah, that's true. There was only so much time in a day. And for something like 100,000, there would be some sort of an actual limit to not, there's only so much bandwidth on the thing. But it's also not feasible. They don't have that many supporters. Like you say, they've got big money. So what that does is give them a presence that a bunch of marketing firms can create, and all buying a bunch of merch, to give out. When you give somebody a red shirt, they probably don't care about your politics. They're putting on the red shirt for the whole crowd mentality thing. So giving people a bunch of merch and hiring some marketing people is different than, like you say, having a bunch of people that are truly interested and participatory. So yeah, having something like a 200,000 like swarm us, I just don't think it's even physically possible. They don't have that many humans. And then, yeah, like you're saying, I don't think they could technically even fit it in there. But that's really not their plan, I doubt. Their plan is to piss us off and, like you say, put a coat of paint on the outside or put a skin on the outside that if someone does go over here and sorts by most recent, or potentially best match, because at some point the best match is just going to be the most popular ones or something. And once you put a pile of them on top, those can become the most popular, right? So I could see them definitely doing this just because they know how systems work and how people use databases and stuff. But the real game of this, I believe, the chess of this, is that I suspect, and I think you said also, that they're going to do whatever they're going to do with this one. And then 16 days from now, or at some point, start doing it to this one. So they're probably got their eyes on both. There's no way that the ATF set up 2 concurrent comment periods without the okay and the approval of the antis, right? Like, they're working in conjunction, and they wouldn't do something to the antis that would be difficult for them to deal with. In fact, instead, I would think they'd want to do something that they think would give their anti-friends the advantage and make it more difficult for us. So putting up two concurrent ones when their allies are ready for it and prepared would seem like the strategy that they are trying here. Because we're not familiar with doing two at the same time, period, like at all.
Oh, no, it's not really been done before.
No, they've never had the audacity to suggest it. Let's see. The ATF ruined the reputation when they shot a boy in the woods and murdered his mom holding the baby. And then let's not forget Waco. No time for jackboots. Yep. It's not the only two times, but yeah.
Yeah. We sell a shirt on Black Swan Tactical that says, "Don't Waco my Ruby Ridge, bro."
With what's his face on there? You should have
it's just forward.
Have Janet Reno high five and Chipman. Then you cover both of them.
Yeah, I don't like David Chipman. He has me blocked on Twitter.
Well, he's the biggest reason I believe this is all a big, stupid chess game or whatever. He's a massive distraction. They literally could not have picked a worse person as a candidate. It's ridiculous if you look at it on paper to even have the audacity to bring in someone who's literally worked for like his entire, as soon as he got done working for the division, for the Bureau, he worked for people who are, politically against everything. And when we look at it, the ATF, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, has 100,000 deaths from alcohol, 500,000 deaths from tobacco, and then barely 40,000 deaths if you include everything with firearms. And we all know that 2/3 of that is suicides, mostly veterans. So when we're in reality, we're talking more like 10,000 violent deaths. Firearms. So when we have a bureau, which this red portion indicates their their job with tobacco, the blue part is their job with alcohol, and this firearms, that little green part, is the part that they're going to put in their ATF director, an adversary of this little line. They haven't even asked them a question about tobacco.
Yeah, well, the firearms.
And it's not as though we don't have medical.
The alcohol statistic there does not include drunk drivers. Victims of drunk drivers.
This doesn't include secondhand smoke, which is debating. The firearms doesn't count the suicides either. But you have to figure out something. And for for illustrative purposes, this is basically the numbers that ATF gives us. In other words, if you go to ATF and ask, if you go to CDC and say, how many firearms deaths, how many tobacco deaths, and how many alcohol deaths, this is what they're going to start out with, and then they start to divide it. But anyway, yeah, so the fact that they're able to have the audacity to put somebody in who's totally adamantly against one area and then doesn't bring up, alcohol nobody ever brings up. Like, it's verboten, except for drunk driving. You're not allowed to talk about alcohol in this country. Tobacco, we've got the vapes, we've got the menthol situation, we got the recreational marijuana, all these different areas that can touch tobacco. And then what about the industry? They start talking about industry numbers. That's actually a different tangent here, but the tobacco industry, especially with them, I'm sure Marlboro and whoever the tobacco industry people are, they must have their eyeballs on recreational marijuana.
Philip Morris.
If when recreational marijuana goes countrywide, you don't think the tobacco companies are in a position to jump on that and turn them into Marlboro marijuana or whatever?
Oh, they definitely will.
Right, and those companies are going to be huge. So they want to suggest that the firearms industry, which only thing they can, they talk about the firearms industry, which provides all the pistols to all the police, the big state. It provides all the rifles to the state, to the big state, right? And to us. So they're never going to say, oh, here's the firearms industry numbers minus military and police. They got to give you the firearms industry numbers, including military and police, which we never even touch. But now these companies are so large. Are you kidding me? I don't know how big alcohol companies are, because I really don't have any idea. But tobacco companies, are they smaller in industry than the firearms industry? Or are they bigger than the firearms
alcohol in the industry is massive, and not only that, there's a lot of venture capitalist venture capital companies that invest in alcohol companies.
You know, I didn't even think about craft beer and that whole popularity and stuff. Yeah, huh? And then there's a lot of alcohol money. And then anyway, I was just going to say,
about 2 seconds.
so yeah, I thought that was crazy that they're going to bring somebody in and never even ask them about what I believe is really more of his job. And well, and again, so that's the Chipman side. All right, so we're all over the place with this one. I think we're going to start wrapping it up. It's getting to be hot here in the day, so I didn't realize I had my door open like an idiot. I have my door open. It must have been humid in here, and I was blowing some of the humidity out, but now it's getting super hot. The tobacco companies made anti-drug commercials, so the government would allow them to sell marijuana cigarettes. So the government would allow them to sell marijuana cigarettes if they ever became legal. Oh, you mean back in like the war on drugs or whatever days, like the 80s? We didn't really read any of the pistol brace ones, so I'm going to jump over to the pistol brace comments and just give it a real casual looky-loo, see if we're getting wailed on, if we're going to lose our pistol braces also, or if we're going to win the pistol braces. So do I still have a poll going? I guess we ended the poll. So overall optimism level is periods. 2A will win. This I don't have a good exclamation point for. 2A will lose. And, well, I guess I'll do like this. Come on, really? Come on, really? Okay, see if this works as a poll. You know what I figured out? The polls do not go into the playback. So if you're doing polls, don't just let the polls happen. Verbalize your polls, otherwise no one will be able to see it later in the playback, which is lame. I don't understand why they don't do that. That's super lame. Marlboro Green 420. You know there's going to be packs of Marlboro or packs of marijuana cigarettes. Oh yeah, we're going to go look at these. What did I do with it? Did I close it? Come on. Is this it? No. Come on. Come on. Here we go.
I'm back. Sorry about that. My 8-year-old is making a game, and he wanted to show me.
Like a board game or a card game?
No, like a computer game.
Oh, okay. Like a program.
Yeah, it's
is
like,
that like in a...
He made this big city, and in the city, it's like a capture the flag first-person shooter. I mean, the graphics aren't like like Call of Duty. The more like Roblox level graphics, but it's still pretty good.
What's the name of that game? Because I think that's what my friends' kids are playing now. It's like a sandbox where they create their own games in it.
Yeah, Roblox.
Okay, yeah, I think. Oh, okay.
It teaches programming, which is good.
Yeah, exactly. And it sounds like it's like a next step from Minecraft, where instead of just playing, they're programming, they're creating elements instead of just playing with blocks in virtual. Right?
Yeah, it's really good. My kid is a pretty good programmer. He made a hockey game and stuff. That's not Roblox. That's like totally code based.
Mm-hmm.
But now he was doing the Roblox one because they have like pre-rendered assets, so he doesn't have to render the assets himself.
I missed back when I was a kid. I was too old, and then, well, I was too old, I guess, because it all came around after I was a kid. But have you ever seen you're younger than me, so have you seen these Legos that have the motors and stuff, but then they interface with computers? You can program your Lego robot to do stuff?
Yeah, we actually put that wasn't from when I was a kid, but that was after me. But we put my son in a robotics camp.
Do they have stuff like that still, those Legos, or do they use other stuff now?
No, they use those.
Because that seems like that would have been super fun. And back in the day, it was crude. It was like hooking up to an Apple II or something. But imagine now that stuff is super fun,
Yeah.
especially if Lego's doing it so that it's like easy and they don't have to think about the structure. They just have to think about the programming part.
Yeah, with my kid, we used the Raspberry Pi and some Arduino boards and made our own robot that wasn't like built from a kit or anything. That we got some sensors and stuff like that, and it draws like an invisible line where it can do different stuff, and you program it to do different stuff. But yeah, so we did that ourselves. We instead of making a kit, I helped them with the programming part, of course, but we wrote custom programming, like a custom learning AI type thing. And yeah.
I'm kind of going through, that's cool. And we had I could go to an electronics store when I was a kid and they'd have like a pegboard of all these little kits for little kids or whatever. And, they'd be like in a baggie with a hole punch in it. And then pretty much all I ever cared about was getting a radio jammer because I would break my radio jammer and want another one. But my dad would make me get other kits and stuff to put together. So you would take them home in like a baggie and a board and you'd solder them all together and it would be like a radio or a loudspeaker or whatever, like some kind of light thing. So that's like the evolution of that. Super cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. We solder everything on there,
Because you also don't have to go buy a stupid baggie of stuff. That was the only way that the distribution worked back in the day. But now, I guess we could have just decided what to build and then go to like a Radio Shack and hope that they had every single piece that we needed from our design. But that would have been a lot of ifs. Nowadays, you can decide what you want to build, order it, have exactly what you want, and build it with your kid exactly how you decided to build it. That's got to be
yeah. That's how we usually do it, and we program. We just do some. Basically, we're doing a lot of Python right now to program some stuff on some Visual C and stuff like that. But yeah, he's pretty good. I know.
So here's the deal.
Yeah,
Woods
I do a lot bit of that.
Clearly a robot plan to get children indoctrinated into robot overlords. Unsupervised robot play is always a bad thing. However, the only way you can effectively deter robot overlording is by understanding how a robot works. True robot anatomy. And true robot anatomy goes down to Python or C+ or whatever they're using to coordinate between their servos and their legs and the servos and their brains. Because if you can hack a robot, we all know the benefits of hacking a robot. So sometimes you need to destroy a robot. And in that case, are you going to shoot a robot in its eye or are you going to shoot it in the servo that lets its leg operate, right? Well, are you going to hit the actuators that run the battery or are you going to click the fan on the CPU?
Hey, I do have a microchip implanted into my head, so I am part cyborg. And that's not even a joke, I do.
No, there's quite a few cyborgs out there. Do you ever watch Deviant Olem?
No.
You know who I'm talking about, though?
No.
Oh, it's a guy who does what do you call it, like pen testing, and he does a lot of like sharing that kind of stuff on videos. So penetration testing of like a company to see if they can get in and get to the server room, or if they can get into a company and find out other secret information. So kind of like
that's what I used to do. That was my old company did.
So he just shares all that stuff. So he shares some interesting stuff, and that dude has basically the same kind of chip we put in a dog or a cat to identify him. He has that kind of chip in the meat between his thumb and his finger, right? Like that web. Mm-hmm. So that way he can hover his hand. Well, you can reprogram that chip however you want. So he can use that for any time there's one of those like scanners and stuff. If he can do it, he can reprogram that chip to hold whatever code it's looking for. He can just wave his hand in front of stuff. So it's creepy. There's definitely people that are into recreational or like, what's the word, like for surgery that's unnecessary, like
biohacking.
Well, I'm just saying like elected cyborgery, like not necessary.
Yeah, it's called biohacking.
Oh, okay. So sticking stuff in you is biohacking.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, I remember like after piercings, well, first there was tattoos and everybody got into tattoos, and then that wasn't enough. So then you'd smear tattoos everywhere and that wasn't enough. So then you started putting holes in your ears, your nose and stuff, and that wasn't enough. So you started stretching those holes, right? And in those days, when there was that like battle of being more extreme with that kind of stuff. You ever seen where people put like basically little pieces of plastic like grains of rice like in their forehead or down their arm or weird stuff, and then it would just look like weird lumps in their skin?
Yeah, that's creepy.
Yeah, but imagine doing that with like a whole bunch of chips, like having your whole forearm just a bunch of lumps with chips that you program to do stuff.
Oh, there's people that do that.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's like, yeah, people do that. Like
I watched a documentary on it. It's very weird.
Okay, so anyway, yeah, so you got to know the robots so that you know how to take out the robots. Let's see. Always carry a bottle of water to defend against robots. Possibly, that's a good idea. Again, taking out the right part of a robot is the important part. Shotguns. Scatter guns is not going to work. Now, maybe if you're shooting big magnets at them, now let's start talking about placing a magnet remotely on a robot from a 12 gauge. That might be interesting. There are tech companies in Seattle that do chip piercings. I was one of those. So, all right. So I was going through the pistol one, and I was as you were talking about the robots and the kid and stuff, I was kind of thumbing through. You guys got some GOA boilerplate in here, and then I found this one, and this happened on I really don't remember. It happened on one of the two of them last week sometime. And I'm hoping that this isn't the same thing. But first we see this like fragment or something. As I've stated beforehand, you predetermine my rights, ? Amen. So it's not even a full thing. So, okay, good. So I was going to say, last week, I went through and found like 25 of these weird fragments and then like the complete paragraph. And I'm like, how does that even happen? Because normally you'd have to go in and submit each one. So you'd have to accidentally submit a fragment, right? Like over and over and over.
It was
system.
It was another group who put that out, but they want to remain anonymous, but it was their system screwed up.
Oh, okay. So it was an inadvertent spam.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's what I figured. It was either an inadvertent, like the squirt of stuff before the real flow comes out, in which case, why is the ATF allowing me to see those? That's exactly why you filter comments, to get rid of the extra garbage or the mistakes, right? Or the repetitive stuff. So at least this time, if that is what happened, then we only see one fragment, and that's what we should expect to see. I mean, it would be better to see nothing, but whatever.
Okay, there was a group that accidentally, they didn't, their comments, they submitted 12,000 comments that were accidentally they were wrong. They didn't meet the standard, so they were all going to get squelched.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Like when you have one of them systems that plugs right in an API and you make a mistake like that, isn't there like some sort of system or procedure where you can say, oops, from comment this to that, remove them, please, and then they remove them?
Once they're submitted, and usually what you do is you test it out, but this other group didn't test it out.
They just, is it new to them, or they just literally was an accident, or was it?
No, I'll tell you offline, but because they don't want to, I guess, I don't know, they are very sensitive about.
Well, I would think that the ATF, the reason they have the filter is so that they can just ignore that kind of stuff. And I don't know if
they are going to ignore it. That's the thing.
Okay, good. Okay, well, that's fine. We want them to ignore garbage. I mean, that's not.
Yeah, but a lot of people think they submitted a comment.
Okay, so that's the other thing. Are those like 12,000 now? You've used your 12,000 allocations. You have to pay for another 12,000, or is it?
No. It's just they thought they submitted a full comment.
Oh, so it wasn't like, oh, we accidentally sent you the same comment 12,000 times. It's like we messed up our system and 12,000 comments were corrupted.
Correct.
Oh, that sucks worse than anything. So that's super, frustrating. So
yeah, I try to talk to this group behind the scenes and get them to go ahead and tell their members, hey, look, you need to resubmit a comment, but they weren't having it.
That's fine. And I can understand 100%, like 6 different ways why you couldn't, I can understand that position. So here's the thing. Let's just all assume that everybody had at least one comment happen, get corrupted, and let's just go write another comment. Because it's not like that.
But if you write multiple comments, they cancel. They'll just say, okay, this person is writing multiple comments and purge all your comments.
I don't see anything that says that though. I mean,
behind the scenes.
You mean at ATF?
Actually not at ATF before it even gets to ATF at the registry.
Oh, you mean at regulations.gov?
Yeah. The National Registry will purge them.
So they have some sort of editorial rights to it before the final numbers get tallied or something?
Correct. Like even if it is like for example, like obscene, what they consider obscene language,
right?
Those get purged. If a comment has nothing to do, if you say the ATF is a unconstitutional organization, we need to disband the ATF. Well, that's not in the spirit of what they were asking, so that gets purged.
Yeah, it's not pertinent to point at hand, and I've seen plenty like that. So here's the thing then. I haven't heard of that part before. When we're seeing, like if I go back over to the main comment page, right, and I flip back over to the main page where you can get the summary of everything, we've got the comment tab, which tells us that 123 have been approved, and it tells us that 124,000 have been submitted. So that's basically like close to 100% are submitted and approved. In past comment periods, it's more like 50% or 60% because they're actually filtering. So I'm assuming from what you're saying that what we see here, the raw comments that we're looking at, this 123 that we're pulling from, we pulled the like most recent 25 here, that these are not necessarily what the final numbers will be. They're still going to put this down.
Okay, because this is what they do. The 124, that means that it hasn't been processed. So let's say so basically that's not the total number of comments with the junk. That's just how many comments are in the system right now.
But unfiltered. And then the number that's after the filter is something that has yet to be determined. We don't have a running total on that.
Correct. So there could be 150,000 comments that have actually came in right now, and there are 123,000 that are approved, and there's 1,000 that's outstanding that they haven't looked at yet.
Yeah, okay, but I'm saying this 124 that's like including all the spam and garbage. Like they're not filtering anything, so they're going to have to filter this again.
No, the 124 is that's the comments, the approved comments, along with the comments that have not been read.
You're talking about this number over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about this number.
Let me go back to my other screen so I can blow it up. I can't really see what you're pointing to.
And the problem is they're basically the same number. So the number that's received is 124 plus, and the number that's been approved is 123, almost 124. Yeah, so what I'm saying is, I think, and this one does include, we've seen multiple spam in this.
Yeah, that will eventually get taken out. Okay. And basically, the comments received is the unprocessed comments along with the processed comments.
Right. But I'm saying these comments are still going to be filtered again. These are still going to go somewhere and be filtered again, and it'll be a much smaller number that's actually the total number of filtered comments. Because when I go and look at these, I'm seeing tons. So I'm wondering if they're doing this in real time, like over the 60 days so far, or do they wait till the end and do it? Okay, so they are doing it.
Well, they would do it again. They will do it again, but there is like a cursory type thing where they just try to get rid of the trash and stuff like that. Right now, they're not being read for substance. They're being read to, filter out spam and
or like if it was just F you, like it's going to remove that. I haven't seen anything like that. But like you're saying,
they're filtering out. They're just doing substance. Then what they would do is they'll log all the comments into the National Registry and then forward it to the ATF, where the ATF will get the final set of comments.
Okay. Well, then that's a little bit more insight to when we're looking at past comment periods, which have a way different ratio of submitted and approved, we're seeing a more raw number of pre-filtered. And then once it's over, that number will adjust and we'll see a more probably consistent ratio indicating how many of these were duplicates and weird stuff. Like you're saying, so many of these, like this one. No new gun regulation is going to stop bad people from doing bad things. I feel this is a money-making opportunity. Don't punish the hardworking American gun owner. Somebody could easily say this has nothing to do with what we're talking about and disregard the comment, right? I guess somebody who's on our side might say, I know what you're saying, it's approved, but I could see easily the way.
The people at the registry, a lot of them don't want to get fired, so they're not really political. So something like that, I would imagine, would probably get by there because they tend to lean on the side of let's allow it unless it's explicitly not related to it, and let the people in the next step filter it down even more.
And that'll happen, right? Once the ATF gets their version of this data set, then they can go in and determine this many of them came from GOA, so we give them this weight, and this many of them came from real people, we'll give them this weight. And when their strategists are doing stuff like
whatever they want to do. That's why at GOA we constantly change up our boilerplate. Like we've been running multiple sets of comments.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. The only thing you can consistently tell is from GOA is because it'll include all the pieces. Like it'll have all the stuff to make sure that it does actually say, I don't want this to happen, because a lot of the ones will kind of look like it, but they won't mention it or something.
It's really funny when you read a comment and you're like, oh, yeah, I wrote that. You know? Or, hey, that's Alan's. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of funny.
This is, at least it's encouraging on this side. I did the first 25 or the most recent 25, and every single one of these, there's only been one boilerplate. Every single one of these has been handwritten, short and to the point and against it. There hasn't been, I don't think there was one pro on the pistol side. So unfortunately, we assume that they're going to turn their little hose of BS from the receiver one over to the pistol one whenever they're done or whenever they feel like it's the right time. But yeah, that's certainly consistent, I guess, except for the weird 6,000 anti ones coming in this time. It's consistent with the amount of interest our community's given to the pistol one. We seem to care more about the pistol one.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand how everything works.
No, and how could you? Because there's no rules. It's not written down anywhere, right? And then it's got to be up to the person. It's got to be up to the person to want to decide to go figure it out. And even if you try, it's like, I can't. I mean, if I figured it out, I'd try to relay it to people, but I don't find anything that's like, here's how the ATF works or stuff like that,
Yeah, you have to really dig, and a lot of people don't have. That's why a lot of my articles, people are like, well, how do you know it works that way? It's like, because I have internal documents, because they don't really give out those documents to people. So a lot of times I have to dig, and one of my missions is to try to explain to people how stuff works with the ATF and government overall. It's not easy.
And it's just kind of annoying. It's not like it's it's not like, well, I guess maybe a couple of the words they use are unique because they use stupid old words or something, or dumb, obnoxious long words for no reason. But other than that, it's just they put so many words in there because they got to, they're just dealing with so many issues and people that they have to make things super inclusive or super precise. And once you can get past that, it's not difficult. It's just got to get used to it or whatever.
Yeah, they also use a lot of legalese in there, and well,
that's what I guess I'm saying. Every other paragraph will have to say except for, and then give you the same old piece that you just read 15 times, just because if somebody jumps in there and reads just this piece, if you forget to write except for every single time, then there's not that except for. So anyway, you got to just get used to when you can jump a paragraph ahead and when you don't want to miss where they changed one word in there. Yeah, that can change meaning or whatever.
Well, I have a lot of contacts with a lot of really smart lawyers. That actually, I have on my speed dial, so I can call them up and say, hey, what does this mean? I also have access to like Mike Hammond, Phil Raboli, Aiden Johnston, who are like legislative experts. And for like the legislative stuff, I can go to them and have them translate it to me or explain it better to me. And then what I do is I can put it into articles or whatnot, explaining it in layman's terms, which is one of the things I'm really trying to do a lot more of, is to try to like break down stuff in layman's terms. I'm pretty good at the legalese. I'm pretty good at the legislative stuff. Like, I've been doing this for so long. But whenever I run into something that I don't understand, I go to one of those, or even Stephen Samboli, who's another lawyer, Rob Olson, who is a chicken farmer and a lawyer. He's the bump stock case lawyer. So I have all these like legislative experts and lawyers that I can go to, and I use them for anything I don't understand or I'm not 100% sure of, just so I can translate it into layman's terms for everyone, because I think that's really, really helpful.
Definitely. And that's the reason why I'm still optimistic, because the things that they used to be able to hide behind, difficulties in communication, or like literally not being able to travel or be aware of what the legislatures were doing. They represented us back in the day because they could physically go to be in a room, because we didn't have technology to facilitate any of that without physically going somewhere and being in a room. And then you elected somebody who could get in that room and make their point clear, or petition for your area of interest or your region or whatever it happened to be. Those types of barriers, or those types of advantages that they would leverage against us, are dwindling. They're gone, literally. Like, we're aware of what they say. We all know now what happened in the Hughes Amendment in the 1986 Firearm Owner Protection Act. It's 100% clear. We have video of that. If we had that same kind of video of 1934, how awesome would that be? But going forward, the attempts that they would have used before to use fancy words or to say stuff in a place that was difficult for us to figure out what was actually said, their voting records and all that kind of stuff, that's all more and more transparent and easy to deal with because of the efforts like what you're talking about. So going forward, we're going to only be more competent and able to deal with what they're doing. They're going to have fewer places to hide that they've hidden in the past. I mean, let's not forget that they're unscrupulous, clever, smart people, so they're going to find new places to hide. But that's our challenge, is that vigilance and internal liberty.
Here's something. There's something called Legiscan that you can set up like trigger words and everything for like legislation, and it just scans through the legislation and it lets you know about things. It's about $25 a year, but it's really worth it if you want to stay on top of stuff like this, and not wait for me or other people to report on it. If you want to do it yourself, yeah, it's like $25 a year, and it just keys on keywords and lets you know if they're trying to sneak stuff through. So like if there's an appropriations bill that comes through, or infrastructure bill, and it has some gun stuff hidden in there, it's gonna tell me. And yeah, so
and then it takes another avenue away from them eventually. Exactly. So a lot of it is just training your representatives, training your politicians to understand what they're able to pull and what they're not able to pull, and just getting smarter and stronger on our end.
Hey, would you mind if I read the first sentence of the article I'm having? Not the article that comes out today, but the article that comes out tomorrow. It might get you a little bit excited, G-Webs.
Go ahead.
Gun Owners of America and AMLAN have teamed up to expose the Firearms and Ammunition Technology Division, FATD, of the Bureau of Alcohol, Firearms, Tobacco, and Explosives, ATF.
Teamed up to create what?
To expose FATD. Oh. We have all their documents. We have their operating procedures.
So then it's sort of like when you had this one not too long ago where it was like, what the hell are the specifics? Like, here's the 3 things that need to happen, and that's what the law is written. And then like you had their like what do you call it, like training manual, you'd say like their teacher's edition, where it
Yeah.
would say like, this is how we interpret this, or this is how we want you to do this.
Yeah.
So like they're going to hit like the hunting regulations. There's the hunting regulations that they put out for people who are hunting, right? And everybody else to know what the rules are. And then there's got to be like the teacher's edition that they give to the game wardens that say, okay, you got to have, if you have 4 fish and this guy's got 6 fish, that's different than the guy who's got 10 fish. And that's different than the guy who's got 15 fish. And here's how you deal with each of those things. It's that kind of situation, right? Like, here's the rules and here's how we want you to deal with the rules. So there's consistency. You've got like that teacher's edition.
Yes. But like what you're talking about, what they did to me is where they tried to hide some of the stuff. I said, hey, isn't this the way you do it? You're telling you people to do it. And they said, no, we're not telling people to do it this way. Here's the document. You can look for yourself. And then they redacted the parts which actually said what they were doing. What they didn't realize was I actually had the unredacted documents from my leak. So I published both.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And that's probably, I'm assuming the whole situation is a result that they don't have an acting director, and that's got to be creating chaos inside of any structure.
Yeah, they have an acting director. Marvin Richardson is the acting
I should mean acting director. They don't have an actual director, as I guess I should have said. So because of that, they've got less consequences and like responsibility for stuff. And I'm guessing that, you know, whenever you got like a situation where there's no boss, everybody's pivoting to be the boss or else wondering who's going to be the next boss. It's not the same situation as when there is a boss, right?
Well, Regina left because, I mean, I don't know why she left, but Regina wasn't pro-gun, but she wasn't as anti-gun as Biden. And she stuck to her guns a lot, saying, hey, look, you know,
You're
we
talking
can't
about
do this.
the last
Regina Lobato. Yeah, she did do a lot of stuff, but there were some bridges that were bridges too far for her. And those bridges that were too far for her aren't too far for Marvin Richardson, who's now the acting head.
Now, this would be interesting. I haven't got the interest or the time to do it, but somebody who just knows it off the top of their head might be able to whip it out, or with some research be able to do it better than I can. But having like a backwards timeline of the ATF directors might be interesting to put it in perspective, because I know they haven't had a director consistently. The thing is, the ATF is not like there's always been an ATF. The ATF is this weird like patchwork quilt, sort of like a shitty shanty town, where they gave it one task and then they're like, oh, here's another task.
Well,
oh, we made booze illegal and those guys got violent. So why don't you just also take guns, since booze and guns are the same thing? And then since you're going after drunks and booze dealers, why don't you just go be violent against gun owners also?
Well,
like,
the ATF was never meant to be a law enforcement agency. It came out of the Department of Taxation.
They're the regulatory agency that was given enforcement powers because of because of prohibition. The prohibition created organized crime because there was now all of a sudden massive money in being illegal, and that created organized crime, which had to fight with each other, and that created this violence. So the government created a situation that fostered violence, and their reaction was to take the regulatory agency, give those people authority and weapons, set them loose, and then just cover up every time they screw up.
Well, the ATF was not formed until the 70s.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of saying before, too. Now I can go over to Minuteman real quick. I have done a synopsis, I guess, of the ATF's like evolution, but not like literally the
like 1970, like
or whatever.
Yeah, 1972 it was formed. Before that, it was the IRS Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Division.
Oh, it started. Yeah, it's like I say, it started out to be like, hey, we're going to tax alcohol. That was like our first tax. Yeah. We're going to tax alcohol. You keep the books. And they're like, okay. And then they're like, oh, now we made alcohol illegal, and they got really violent. So now you're also an enforcement agency, and now you can have guns and just do whatever you need.
Yeah, it became the Bureau of Prohibition, I think it was.
Well, I'm looking it up. I got it all listed here someplace.
And then it turned into like something else in the 20s or in around 1920. And then it became like in 1927 it became a independent
Bureau.
agency in the Treasury, I believe. And then I know the whole history. And then it went over to the Justice Department in the 30s. And believe it or not, originally, I think some of the powers were transferred to the FBI for a few years. I'm trying to remember.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They're like this crazy patchwork of just weirdness. So if I
And then it went
this,
to Treasury again in like the 40s. And then when the Treasury became the Bureau of the Treasury became the IRS, it was spun off as the IRS Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Division. And then in 1972, the ATF as we know it was formed.
and they do this. I just pulled this all off their website. They're super proud of their history because it's such a pain in the ass. It's probably like a test that they have to do. So these are all the different badges that they've had over the years.
Yeah, I should write a book about it.
Yeah, well, like I say, it's easy to get this because this is all off of their website. And like you said, it just summarizes the first tax on whiskey. They began under internal revenue because the government didn't have all these divisions. So the government had to grow and stuff. But it isn't until, like John just said, all these different evolutions. You can go check it out. Like I say, there's all kinds of places that have this written.
Weren't they in, look at 1933, I believe it was?
When Prohibition ended?
No, alcohol tax prohibition ended between the time Prohibition ended. When the Prohibition ended, the ATF was transferred under the FBI until the alcohol tax unit was formed.
And then they went to Treasury, so they go from Department of Justice and Treasury. But the thing is, it's not like all these entities existed as they are today and ATF was bounced around. The whole government was in flux. I mean, this was between the world wars and stuff. We were into, the development of computers is in here. Like all kinds of things change. Like we go from typewriters and adding machines to the first computers and stuff, and census and stuff is changing, and number of taxes are coming in are just crazy different. Crimes, what they're set to do. Moonshine becomes a thing in 1960, and that changes everything.
Well, if what's really interesting is that the ATF was not allowed to carry firearms until the NFA passed.
Yeah, until they only created the NFA because of the gangs, and then made guns illegal. So that's when they decided, since we made guns illegal now in 1934, why don't we also give the regulation to this tobacco or to the alcohol place? It wasn't until later that they got tobacco. But it's just this messed up patchwork. So anyway, the history of the ATF is one thing, and it's convoluted. There's really no reason to know it other than to know it's been crazy, and it's not like a consistent thing that the government has always seen a need for and answered the need. Instead, it's been like this bullshit thing that they have to hide or get stuck with, and they decided to start regulating stuff and they just haven't let go. But it's not because it's necessary. It's because no one stood up and said, stop regulating this yet. They stood up in 1933 and said, stop prohibiting alcohol. And it changed, right? We just need to stand up in 2021 and say, stop the NFA. And then we don't need gun shops and we don't need any of the regulatory shit. We definitely don't need the enforcement side. And then when a criminal uses any weapon, a police officer deals with them or a sheriff deals with them.
Well, it wasn't even that there was like for the NFA, there was like a big outburst of violence. They exploited the St. Valentine's Day massacre where 7 people died to get the NFA passed.
Well, that's an awesome point, dude. But here, I don't want to discount that point because I kept saying that, the gangsters got violent. You're right. The gangsters at the time, there was no radios in police cars, and jurisdictions ended at county lines and state lines. So somebody could make a big ruckus and drive across state lines and put their nose up to the police. And the police had to be like, oh, shucks, I hope that some other police car comes by in that jurisdiction and gets them. So it was literally like watching a cartoon. right? So
Dukes of Hazzard.
yeah, it's a Dukes of Hazzard, right? So it's frustrating for the cops, and they didn't know radios were coming. So they looked to federal law enforcement, and greedy, power-driven federal law enforcement was like, hell yeah, we can answer that. Let's put out some jackboots, right? So yeah, so there's all kinds of stuff in the ATF. I don't want to discount that, but what I was saying before is because this stuff's so easy to find and it's already there. What isn't out there and what might be interesting is to see backwards in time a timeline of ATF directors, because it's been this hodgepodge. There's a director like Janet Reno was a horrible director. That's where Jack Boot comes from, is Janet Reno.
Yeah, right? She was a Department of Justice. She was
she was the boss level above this. You're right, but whatever. Like that kind of history, I think would be interesting because at least I haven't ever found anybody who just did that and offered it. Because I think seeing maybe next to this, like how they got bounced around between different departments and how they became a bureau and all this, and why, who the hell knows why they decided to put tobacco and alcohol together. Well, we know why, but why they left them together as if firearms is a vice. It makes no sense, or it does make sense if you have an intention of marginalizing gun owners and criminalizing them, right? But letting the Department of Government, push that, that's part of it.
Well, they came together because there was the taxation of all of those.
Right, exactly. So it's just we know how it came together, but the fact that they haven't ripped it apart, hasn't been said like, hey, why are these vices together with firearms, which are a necessary part of society? Why are they with these things that are not? But anyway, so I'm just saying it would be interesting to see somebody put together a thing. I've seen some of the antis put together something similar to what I'm talking about to keep track of all the presidents of the NRA and all the different executives of the NRA. And it's just like ammunition to be used if you're ever doing research or something. But those people that are doing real research for 2A might be helpful to see a backwards history of the bureaucracy of the 8.
Like a dude from Oppo Research.
Mm-hmm. And it's not super time critical or nothing. I just think it'd be neat because I just was thinking about that couple of times when I started hearing about this whole Chipman thing, because it doesn't have anything to do with parties. That's the weird part. Like Obama had the same ATF interim director as Trump, right, for a long time. Like they just change randomly, it seems like, and there must be some reason, but
it's bureaucracy. It's next in line.
But what instigates it is probably, it's not necessarily always like, oh, there's bad news or like they made a mistake. It's embarrassing. Like change the director. It's other things too. But stuff like Reno, you would think like as soon as Waco, like let's get rid of the director. Of course they doubled down and were like, oh no, she's perfect.
Well, she was AG.
Well, I keep saying it because I don't think there was an ATF director. At least nobody talked about the ATF director. They just took it straight to her.
Well, ATF over the years have grown in power. Back during the Waco days, ATF, it was powerful. It wasn't like it is now.
Well, hell no, it isn't. And that's another thing, is one of the things I was tracking somewhere was the number of FFLs. So yeah, just think about them. Since they're the regulatory agency, they have to grow in some sort of proportion with the number of FFLs. We have like 100,000 FFLs. I wonder how many there would have been in like the 90s. I think substantially less. Now you have to have an FFL if you want to be, crossing your T's and dotting your I's to do Cerakoting or to do stippling, perhaps, or engraving on slides. So the number of people that get FFLs has got to be, I don't want to say exponential, but it's got to be quite a bit more than back in the 90s. Kind of stuff in your garage. You have to go into business, so less for like a home FFL to mention internet sales. The number of home FFLs is massive compared to like the 70s.
Can I just throw out something? Night Strike, I need you to contact me. I got something big for your website that I think you might like.
You're talking about guntube.org?
Yeah. I got a major YouTuber who is looking to stream somewhere where he can mess around with firearms and, on stream.
Right on. Yeah, GunTube is using a solid, what's the word? A secure and private streaming service. It does hook up to YouTube, and you have pretty much the similar features that you'd have. The only thing I don't have over there is this, but pretty much I can emulate that with other ways.
You can do it. You can do it. There's a way.
Yeah, exactly. I can do it. It's just that it's not in this actual thing he's got going. But otherwise, this is a great platform. It's Mike right here is the guy hosting it in North Carolina. So, he's in South Carolina, but it's being hosted in the United States and been, 5 years now. And unlike the other platforms that were created at the same time, one owner, same time, or the whole time, consistent, slow growth. They do have a Patreon, which I don't know why he doesn't link to it right here. Maybe down here. Maybe. Oh, I gotta set the stupid cookies, and then maybe I'll find his Patreon. There we go. So if you do want to support a gun-focused, non-waste of your time video hosting platform, there you go. So now I'll shut up about trying to promote it. You're saying you've got somebody that's looking to
a pretty damn major YouTuber.
Pretty cool. So we definitely.
I don't want to blow it up too much right now until I talk to Mike and everything, get everything worked out. But I think it would be good for his site to have him over there. Would increase the traffic. Especially if he starts putting stuff over there that he wants to put over there that YouTube won't allow, like how-to videos and stuff like that. But at the same time, I want to make sure that they're going to have the bandwidth to handle it and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's good to go. He's got plenty and he's scalable. I'm sure that in the gun channels days, I'm just assuming that in the gun channels days when we were still up and running full speed, that with the whole community over there using it, he was probably using a heck of a lot more bandwidth in the past than he's even using now, but he's scalable. So whatever he needs, he can just throw it on the pile. And when people come along, that means people are there to support the platform. So it should be a good way to go. I recommend anybody who's got stuff online. You don't want to rely on any one platform. There's just too many things. It's a bump in the road or a miscommunication or an inadvertent whatever. Just an error, right? Stuff can drop a whole channel's worth of stuff. We don't want to assume anything. So having your stuff on the big platforms where you spend your time is always the way to go. And then having backups or having parallel, like RAID systems, like extras, copies of your stuff, not only gives you more reach, but then, gives you a place to link to, or to, in this case, like you're saying, have a, like maybe a how-to or how to DIY or like an assembly video. YouTube term service doesn't like that technically, I guess, even though they're inconsistent in how they deal with it. You don't have to worry about that kind of, it's consistent over on guntube.org. There's no censorship of that stuff. There should be. I don't believe anybody needs to know how to take apart a 9mm. Like that kind of stuff should be on the dark net.
Exactly.
There should be like the dark net and the 9mm net for like the worst of society to go hang out down there where nobody else wants to go. You can have 9 servers. That's all it needs.
You know what I noticed? Guns and Barbecue has been in the chat for like 30 minutes and haven't said a word.
He's so scared.
Yeah, you guys are so 2-wayer than me. I can't keep up.
Guns and Barbecue, who now has gear on the Black Swan Media store, and we're going to get some more up probably early next week.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So Black Swan Tactical store, not media. Media's my media company.
What's Black Swan all about?
Black Swan Tactical is my t-shirt shop.
No, I'm saying where'd the name come from? How does it get named Black Swan?
Okay, it's a funny story, and you know what a Black Swan event is, right? Something that's
okay, no, that's what I was going to say. Is that where it came from?
No. Go back to just search Black Swan for a minute.
Oh, the regular word, yeah.
Okay, look over towards the Wikipedia on the right.
Yeah.
All right. So a bunch of my friends was having a party, and they wanted me to go. But for Christmas, I bought my wife tickets to a play, Matilda, at the Kennedy Center in DC. So I couldn't go. So they changed me going to a play to me going to the ballet. And then they started calling me Black Swan because they said I went to a ballet. Then when I formed Black Swan Media, which was originally Black Swan Tactical Media, but now it's got changed to Black Swan Media, I had a partner. My partner name was Roger, regular guy reviews. I don't know if you know him. And he actually named the company Black Swan because he said I went to a ballet instead of going to a party.
Okay. Because there's I don't know if it's a coding thing. I'm more familiar with it from coding stuff, but a Black Swan event is, I guess, the way to describe an event or an occurrence that deviates beyond the norm.
Yeah, but no, that's not where it's from. I know what it is, and I would love to tell people that's where I got the name from. You know, because you never know what you get with us, and we look out for the unforeseen or whatever. But no, that's not the case. It was a joke, inside joke.
You had the opportunity to be like, yeah, we you can't tell what's coming, and we're difficult to predict. Said you're like, no, it's from a ballet. Okay.
You know,
So,
I went to a play with my friend said it was a ballet, and I couldn't go to a party.
So is it at least a good play?
Well, we never actually went to go because my youngest son got sick, so he never even got to go.
Those situations can be frustrating. So I'm looking for event. What am I typing? I'm typing in Black Swan Media.
Black Swan Tactical is the t-shirt shop where the guns and barbecue stuff is over. Black Swan Media is my little company that I do, app development, social media. I use analytics and data sciences for advertisements and stuff like that for marketing.
It makes a lot of sense. You're using all that knowledge that you got when you built Amazon to.
Dude, what the hell's up with that? I have no idea where that freaking rumor came from. If you go up to collections and you click on the guns and barbecue, you can see his stuff. But yeah, I have no idea where the hell that came from. It's kind of funny. So there's only that, and where's the shirt?
I really like the simplicity of 2A EDU's design.
Yeah, the shirt is.
Need to get that
there
one.
should be a shirt there. I don't know. I gotta look. I don't know why the shirt's not there. There's a Guns and Barbecue shirt.
It's not filtering probably, unless you sold them all.
No, I didn't sell them all. They're still there. I just don't think that I probably back end stuff. I gotta look at.
With this under any filter.
No, it's. I'm gonna look right now. I know I didn't sell them all.
That Guns and Barbecue logo is G Webb's original, created on the Daily Gun Show one night.
Oh, maybe you should hook them up with some money then.
I was thinking about something like that.
No, that's right. So that's cool. So it's appreciate you doing that. Your support in Guns and Barbecue is sitting right here, but also a bunch of other people. You got Sandhills Shooting Gallery, New England, Gorilla Guns.
We're gonna have CRS Firearms coming up soon.
Lion Rich. What about Devin?
Oh, Devin? Yeah, Devin's going to come on soon as well. There is a Guns and Barbecue shirt. It's just not, Hold on. So there is one. I just don't think I,
Make it private or public.
No, I forgot to. I have it so it automatically does it by tags, and I didn't put in the tag.
Yeah, I was going to say, it was in the email today that went out.
Yeah, it was in the email today. I just didn't put it in the tag for some reason, but it should be in the tag now. Will be in a second. Publish. Yeah. All right. All right. So that the Guns and Barbecue shirt will be in the Guns and Barbecue section of the website shortly. But it did go out in the website on the email today. One of my email blasts today did show the Guns and Barbecue shirt. But it is there.
All right, well, we're at the 2-hour mark, and I'm going to go back over to this poll over here. It says, so your overall optimism level of the comment periods, and this was after a while ago, maybe, that was a 52-minute ago poll, so an hour ago, when we got done kind of reading some of those comments or whatever, 54% of 13 votes, so I guess that's probably 7 of the votes, was 2A will win. Then 38, which is probably some number less than that, would be nothing will change. And then I don't know how many that is. 1 or 2 people said 2A will lose. So I'm guessing that's about what the thing would be out there. I don't think, just judging from this, that anybody on the other side, like the antis, they understand that these comment periods don't mean nothing. It's just sort of like what is it? It's like a pine box derby thing, or whatever those cars are called. Like, it's just sort of like, it's interesting, and if you win, great, but it don't mean nothing. Sort of like, I guess, the Olympics, except there's way less effort in it. Like, nobody's spending their lives to worry about this, but it's almost like just for bragging points. I don't think the ATF is obligated to do anything based on these comment periods, are they?
No, they're not obligated. It's supposed to be the comments are supposed to be like people expressing their opinions, and they're supposed to take those into consideration. But how much they take it into consideration is up to them.
Right, and then again, up to us. So we as a community, as a bunch of people who are the audiences of those groups or those individuals or those projects or those things that are going to amplify or magnify the things out there that we want to have magnified or amplified. If whatever happens, we're going to see something like 100,000 plus comments come in on the receivers, the redefinition receivers, something like 150 probably by the time it's done, come in on the braces. We know that a good chunk, like a really good percentage, almost 10% of these could easily be kind of manipulated piles at the end, and we can either take that as a blow, as a black eye, and go sit down with a black eye, or we can fight through the blow, fight through the black eye, and expose it for what it is, some desperate paint on the outside of 100,000 comments that told the ATF, our employees, in so many awesome ways. There's a heck of a lot of boilerplate in there. I'm guessing 50% boilerplate at this point of the stuff we've read. But those boilerplates, you're allowed to write an X. You're allowed to not have the ability to write good and have someone else voice your opinion and say what he said or what she said, right? That's valid. You're allowed to do that. So those boilerplates have meat. However, having half of the comments be written out, typed out, and those ran the gambit from weird, utter, guttural, English second language, maybe, I've never been to school, just piecing it together, which were some of my favorites, and then to the lawyers and writers who wrote out these super precise, eloquent, statements of our position and everything in between, right? Those are incredible, and I've never seen that in the 3 or 4 times that I've paid attention to these comments. Now, I'll admit that I have never spent this much time paying attention to comments, but we've never had 2 comment periods come in at the same time that we have a bullshit fake ATF nominee at the same time when we see an administration that's desperate for us to waste our attention on red herrings and endless spinning our wheels over here while they just cram through trillions of dollars in spending, allow people to flow through the border, just do all kinds of stuff that they're desperate to have our attention taken from. It's an opportunity for us to take this stuff in stride, to challenge the NFA. This is the perfect time to challenge the NFA. I'll shout that from the rooftops. We've never been so united as a community. The naysayers and scareds and the people that wouldn't, and even if they could, have never been fewer. We have more solid, useful onboard people than ever before. We've got organizations and groups. We have a perfect opportunity for some national level leadership to point in a direction and let all these different entities pursue, and I'm going to suggest pursue the removal of the NFA. It's a perfect time for it. And like I say, there's nothing they can do. I think the evidence is clear that the best that they can come up with at a time when they desperately need guns to be the scapegoat, they need us to be the punching bag. The best they can come up with is throw in 2 requests to ask our permission, sort of, I guess not permission, but our opinion at the same time. And I think we're pretty handily addressing it. Maybe not as much as I'd like to see. I'd like to see 300 comments coming in every month so that it's overwhelming that they shouldn't be messing with us. That would tell politicians and political strategists a whole different scenario. But I'll take this scenario of all the different scenarios we could have got. This one's pretty good. So again, I guess I started this whole rant with whatever the antis do at the end here, whatever they are successful or unsuccessful at doing to try to manipulate this thing, and then it goes to the ATF and however they interpret it. That isn't the end. That's just the end of this part of the procedure. But we don't have to let that rest. And we're not going to, I'm sure the organizations that we pay money to aren't. They're going to take them to court if it goes the wrong way, which we've successfully seen with the bump stock and with other things that are moving right now. And whatever, there's a constant fight. But like I say, I think that this is an example of them being weak. I'll shut up and let you guys say stuff. We don't have to end immediately, but we're not going to go forever.
I like going forever.
Sometimes it's good. I planned on going for an hour. I got to figure out where we're at. This is Tuesday and I'm not independently wealthy, so I got to go make some more money. If anybody wants to super chat, I appreciate it. But more importantly, check out those Patreons. Take $20 and subscribe to 2A, right? Go put $20 on, where'd it go? On gun tubes, or go take your $20 and put $5 on gun tube, and then put $5 on me, and then go put $5 on somebody else, and go put $5 on somebody else. Are you on Patreon?
Who? Guns and Barbecue?
No, he's not on Patreon. Or no, he is on Patreon.
Guns and Barbecue's on one of his Patreons, I think.
I
think
I said it. Did not notice that. I'll have to go back.
I think I am. If not, I meant to be, and I would have to go on Patreon.
I finally remembered to look you up on Patreon.
So go play. Thanks for that. Think of Patreon as like a Disney subscription or a Netflix subscription, right? And throw $20 around, throw $50 around, whatever money is worth to you. Go throw some money at 2A. You can't understand how motivating it is to have people appreciate you at the level they're giving you their treasure, and then how useful it is to be able to actually implement ideas and do stuff for Second Amendment and not have to be doing it on your spare time when you got a moment and it, some sort of like bandaged, hobbled together way.
Well, my Patreon money, I'm on Patreon, patreon.com/John Crump. I use most of my money to, if not all, most of the time it's more, but I use that money to kind of do projects and to distribute money out to projects I believe in, some gun related, some not. Like, for example, like in September, all that money is going to be going to DIP, like childhood brain cancer research. I'm also going to be doing a streamathon to raise money for child cancer next month. But I've done Make-A-Wish, bought a bunch of toys from Toys for Tots. Also bought a gun for a single mom and got her gun training. Done a lot of stuff like that. So that's where all my money goes to.
Well, everybody uses the system a little differently. I like the idea that it's venture capitalism for 2A. It lets people participate in what, throw their money, like lets them literally participate, much more effective than flipping a dial. You throw money at the resources, at the thing that you appreciate most. And like I say, you can take hopefully an inconsequential amount of cash and divide that up and then play Lord of Patreon. You get to decide who gets your $2 each month. Trust me, nobody's going to care. I got tons of people that shuffle between me and other Patreons, And some of them let me know. Some of them I can just kind of tell that's what they're doing. Others, one-hit wonders. Others have been with me since the beginning. But that stuff adds up. And I am looking forward to a time when 2A activism isn't shamed if you try to do that full time. I think that we're better off when we have people who pay attention to the Second Amendment full time and that aren't lawyers and that aren't movie stars or any kind of other crap, just people that are interested because we're better off that way, right? And having people that are the most work we got done being done by 2A is being done in people's spare time when they're able to and on their own dime.
Yeah.
Those people were all full time, and it would just take 1,000 people throwing $20 at Patreon every month, and that would fully fund people like Tony Simon and others.
I mean, I wish I could give up my ownership of Amazon to concentrate on this full time.
Exactly, but because of the whole vestitures and like that kind of thing, like you gotta wait until it all comes through.
I want to sell my share of Amazon to Jeff so he can become the sole owner of Amazon.
And then it's like, then do you get on the next spaceship or do you lose your seat? So you got other things to do.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I don't want to do it because I will lose my seat on the next Blue Origin space flight.
So I got this thing because I just did a series of a whole bunch of videos, and I added this to my show here, so we're going to use it as a commercial.
The Patreon website creates a platform where we can support creators whose content wouldn't necessarily be viable financially on the big platforms. So in the next few weeks, we're going to share some of the projects that we support directly with the hopes that you might be encouraged to support some of these projects as well. Here we go.
And then I went ahead and talked about all the different projects that I support. And again, encourage people to, unlike what Foss is saying, wing in a bunch of nickels at people. That works. But it's just, you have to then take the nickels in, and because of the whole situation, it's difficult. Like I say, throwing it a chunk of money and dividing it up like Woods is saying. Have some fun with it.
Yeah, I was going to mention, if anybody does become a patron of mine, I really do appreciate it. But I feel like there's a ton more people out there, such as Tony Simon or KD, all these guys that are doing far more G-Web.
I'm going to cut you off because number one, I don't care. And number two, I'm sick of that. So here's the thing. Think about it this way. Instead of you going like, oh, shucks, I don't know what to do with the money, blah, blah, blah. Think about it like this. If there was 1,000, like right now, let's say there's 100 people, because I have about 100 Patreons. Let's say there's 100 people that are so 2A that they're going to pay a couple of bucks to me be boring and weird on 2A. So let's say that was 1,000 people. I think Tony and me are right about the same. So Tony's, let me go look. Oh, I'm not screen sharing. I think Tony's Patreon brings him in like $500 a month because he says up there how much it is or whatever. So if you think about just putting a zero behind everybody, right? Like just put a zero behind however many people you've got, and that means pretty much however much cash you got coming in. So Tony goes from $500 a month to 5,000. Like, I don't know what Tony's business is, but I got to assume 500 and 5,000 is a pretty dramatic difference. So if there's if we can get 1,000 people to hang out on Patreon and throw around $20,000 a month, that's $20 each for 1,000 people. They start throwing around $20, and realistically, who knows how many of them are going to throw 50 instead of 20, right? Or 10 instead of 20, but more often it's going to be higher than the average or whatever. So, and if it's more than 1,000, we're talking about way more money. So instead of saying, oh, shucks, or whatever, say, yeah, come on, join my Patreon. But remember, there's other people also. So no, that's all I'm encouraging you to do is bring people on board to your Patreon, like John's doing. If you're not doing it to retire off of, that's what I think I used in the thing. Like, I'm sure that neither one of you is trying to retire on your Patreon money. I certainly am. Like, that my Patreon money is paying my mortgage. It's paying most of my bills. And then the store barely keeps up with my, like, other bills, right? I'm kind of treading water. But there are people that could be doing a lot more with their Patreon. And I'm not talking about buying another fucking gun every month to shoot and review. I'm talking about people like Tony Simon that could be doing more than one. He could be franchising the concept of the 2A for E, right? Or I could go on and on. Look at Devin, Kids to Kings. Funded at $5,000 a month instead of $500 a month. That enables you to do more. And that doing more is inspiration for the next generation, right? So instead of saying, "Ah, shucks," think Patreon is like some kind of handout, it's like, yeah, let's start using Patreon. Let's see what happens when we got $20,000 a month going around in some sort of a fund that gets distributed amongst Second Amendment advocates. Imagine again, like pick any lady from the DC project, and imagine if she didn't have to think financially about taking some time off work and going to Florida to do their skills training.
I mean, I would love to get to the point where I could just, I do the stuff with the Patreon money because it's not enough to live on, so I have to do a day job. But I would love, I volunteer for everything else, but I would love to get to the point where I could just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to quit my day job and just do a gun rights and keep an eye on the ATF full time. And I think I'd be a lot more effective, but be a lot more work. But I think I do a pretty good job with just doing this part time, in my spare time. But if I could do it full time, I think I could really shake some trees at the ATF. And I already do shake cages or whatever you want to say the saying is at the ATF, but I think I could be a hell of a lot more effective.
Well, that was my point with what I was saying before. My operating costs for my channel are minimal, and when I say minimal, I mean almost non-existent. This is more of a hobby for me than anything. I mean, at the same time, it's a passion, but I call it a hobby at the same time because it's not anything that I have to do. It's something I'm choosing to do, and like I said, G-Webs, Crump here, Tony Simon, all these people, they're doing way more, and they're putting a ton more into this fight, and that financial backing would be put to really good use on them than me, who, like I said, I'm just doing this because it's something to do, it's something fun, but it's not something I have to do. It's something I'm choosing to do, and like I said, my operating costs are minimal. Honestly, what I'm getting in Patreon right now is just offsetting some of the costs that are going to me donating to other content creators like Crump, like G-Webs, Night Strike, GunTube, Clovertac, Ghost Tactical. I mean, I think last time I looked, I am a patron of like 20 or so different creators.
Well, I got a question. How could you look?
I say I got a small amount of vision still, just enough.
I'm just messing with you, man.
I know.
I thought you would get a kick out of that.
That was a good one. I say, of all the questions I was waiting for, that was not it. So you caught me.
Yeah.
I did a whole video where I went through, here it is, hold on. I went through a whole video and I had somehow I found a thing that showed me all the people I was subscribed to, right? And I think I just showed it in that thing I just did, right? I can't find it now. There's a page that shows you the people that you support on Patreon. It took me forever. I couldn't even find it. I had to go find Tony's link just off the internet.
Yeah, I think it's under my subscriptions or something like that. Or manage my subscriptions.
Manage memberships?
Or, yeah, memberships.
No, see, that's managing them. I was looking at some sort of a page, like a view page, like everybody could look at.
I can't. Shows up
I just linked to Tony's right there. So Tony's one is right there, and then what happened to it? I just had it open here. I'll paste, and then so Tony's got 54 Patreons at $500. So figure $10 a Patreon. Is that was something like that? So I'm just saying, throw a zero behind there. So with 500 Patreons, he's got 5,000 coming in, and that's right. Again, I think that's the easiest example to show what the difference could be with a zero for a project like Tony's. And then, I mean, I don't know, I could go on and on, start a whole nother show about projects that are similar or, not maybe similar, but in the same way could be improved with some funding. And again, I just wanted to throw that out there that Patreon is a pretty neat project and we just happen to all be on it. So we talked about it for a while. All right, so going back to, now we're at the 2:30 mark, just exactly there. We didn't have any polls running right now. Going back to comments here, this one has kind of been blown all out of whack. Anything to summarize or go back, or any points that we missed that blown past? You're muted or something.
No, I wasn't expecting to do a live stream today, but it was good.
Yeah, right on. Thanks for jumping in and give us some insight. And now we have a little bit more. I still think this one's a little weird compared to normal. I don't remember. I guess I wasn't looking for anomalies because the last one was literally during Christmas week. Like, so it was a part of a situation.
I mean, I don't think that every town held back comments like they did this time.
Or if they did, they didn't have time because the comment period started on Friday, lasted till like Wednesday or Thursday, and then ended because of the overwhelming lack of support and the unscrupulous nature of doing it the days before Christmas.
Yeah, it ended early, so I don't know if they just didn't have the idea or they did have the idea and they were going to do it, but just didn't have time because it ended early.
Or maybe they weren't set up yet, so they ended it early so that they could redo it now when they're prepared.
Yep.
We wouldn't put that past.
Exactly.
But anyway, yeah, thanks for jumping in and for the insight. Barbecue, thanks for jumping in. And
you know, I just realized I'm the only one that was on camera the whole entire time.
Yeah, I've never done camera.
I know you don't. You're like a ninja. I saw you in DC. I actually at Red October you were like stalking me around. Well, you weren't really stalking me around, but you were there. No, I just never saw you.
Yeah, you weren't standing in one space, and I don't go to events. I mean, I've been to a lot of events, so I don't go to events necessarily to like experience it, you know, because I've been to a lot of them. So I go to the event to cover the event. So I like to walk a perimeter, get an idea of the size and scale, and in that time you can get an idea of who's there, like what the attendees are like, and kind of what the vibe is, I guess the kids would say, like, you know, what it's like. And then once I've kind of an idea of what all there is, just like going to a gun show, I'm going to run the whole gun show real quick first, see what all's there, and then I'll go back and look at the stuff I like. So I'll usually take a look at the perimeter and then go in and look at the stuff that's interesting that I like, and then go look at the stuff I don't care about so much, but I should probably look at so I can know about it. And that's the problem, is I was kind of doing that, learning the place, and I had never been to that range before. I was amazed. I had only seen it from the road, so I thought it was like this big, but it turns out it kind of goes behind the hill.
Freaking
and it's way
huge.
Yeah, and they were not using a little bit of it. They weren't using the whole thing, but they were using a lot of it, so there was quite a bit of walking around. And I was debating going up on the hill by that water tower. I didn't know if anybody was going to stop me, but I thought that would be a great picture of the whole thing, and I was just too lazy to go up there. But
I saw you weeks later in DC.
Around, and I was walking around. You didn't know who I was, so you weren't looking for me. And I forget now. Anyway, so I didn't even see you. I think I saw you once, and then I was like, "Oh, I'll come back because that's where he is." And then you weren't there anymore, so I was like, "Oh." And then the place was not little; it was huge. So it was the way I was just going to find you.
I was doing some like FaceTime with industry people for GOA. And then I saw you in DC, and then all of a sudden in DC, you just like disappeared on me.
Yeah. So my deal is that I've never been a fan of the garbage where you stand there and you hold a gun like a revolver in your hand near your belt buckle, and then you see in the video like the trees behind you, just like everything Johnny Rowland does. Like I hate that when you can't actually see what you're looking at. So every video I've ever done is just looking straight at the gun, and the gun is 100% of the screen because that's what the videos were about back in the day. And I just did them that way. I never thought about it. And then at some point, everybody started to become personalities on YouTube or whatever. You know, for a while there, I was the second biggest channel to Nothing Fancy. So for a while there, there was this like, it was not the same, but it was, if there was any celebrity, there was, you know, that celebrity or whatever. And my goal was not to become a TV channel or some emulation of a bullshit cable channel or cable TV show, right? I only wanted to share some guns that were interesting from the shop with other people. So I wasn't looking to be a celebrity. And then at some point, this was 2009 to 2012 era when YouTube was not yet a platform for community. It was simply a place where we could post our videos. most of the community on the internet was done in forums. And the big forums like AR-15 and, oh, I don't know, pick some of the big forums, they were rough. You had to be thick-skinned and either ignore the gross and the weird and the abusive or deal with it all. And a lot of people were looking for an alternative from that. And I have no interest in dealing with drunk and abusive and mean people for no reason, knowing that most of them are children. So I created our own forum that was basically a lot like gun channels, except it was a forum. And that's where most of our communication took place. So I was much more using YouTube as just a place to post a video or whatever. So when the celebrity crap started happening, and you know the people because they still exist, some of the people leaned into that and they did not know fame was coming, but they were ready for it and they enjoyed fame. And at that point, by 2012, my friend Haas and I started to drive the country to try to unite the community a little bit. And we started to learn more about the community and whether or not it was going to be united. And at that point, I started to get comments from people that said, I like that you don't try to act like some sort of bullshit TV show, that you're just doing the info, and that's why I wanted to do YouTube, or that's why I'm in the mix. And then, like I say, the community was just being built in 2012. We didn't know where it was going. YouTube was a place where kitten videos and kicked in the balls videos, like it was America's Home Videos, except on the internet. It was garbage and stupid. There was no community here, and no one knew what YouTube was about to become, like a video version of the alternative to Facebook, right? So, and you know, it's a non-Reddit, it was a non-Facebook community. And until they pushed everybody off in 2013, YouTube was really, you know, developing. So anyway, as it was developing and I was getting feedback that I'm part of the community because you are offering an alternative to the garbage that every other channel was providing, I leaned into that and I said, good, right on. I don't need to do this. I'm not seeking it. Now, I've always gone to gun shops and I've always gone to SHOT Show, right? Ever since we've been doing content, I can walk up to somebody in SHOT Show and talk to them and have a real conversation with them, an authentic conversation with them, and walk away. And they don't know anything the wiser. And I have real information about whatever we had a conversation about. You, other people that you know, can't do that. They can't walk the floor of any show without a celebrity status that they've sought out and looked for. And now they're completely removed from any authentic communication or conversation. They can't walk into a gun shop without having their dick sucked, right? I can do that. I can walk in and out of a gun shop. I value that. So I don't think of it as a gimmick or anything. I consider it a characteristic of the channel. But when I go to something like that rally, I walk the perimeter and I noticed that how big it was. And I don't know if people remember, but some sports thing happened, and I don't know how many tens of thousands of people were in Washington, D.C. because of that sports card.
It was Nationals won the World Series.
So whatever that means, right? A bunch of sports people were there. And, you know, we had our people there for the rally, and a bunch of cowards were like, oh, I'm not going to the rally because I'm scared of gun laws. Or I'm not going to the rally because the sports people will be there. Or I'm not going to the rally because unless it's a sure win, I'm scared to go participate. So it was interesting to see how many people were at that rally, but there was a hell of a lot of cameras there too. So my goal was to walk the perimeter and then experience the rally. Now I can walk through the middle of the crowd and I can do that. And that's what I did. So I basically was walking through the crowd to try to understand who was there and what the conversations were, what the percentage of media and people paying attention versus the like spectators. And it was interesting. There was a lot of movers and shakers there, and I'm able to walk up and not change the conversation. And, you know, I'm not saying I'm eavesdropping, but I'm able to experience what a conversation between two people are like from afar and not have it turn into, oh, can we go over there and somehow, you know, I don't change the conversation. So I value that. Anyway, so it was definitely unique at that one. Everybody was busy. Everybody had agendas. People had schedules and stuff. So, you know, I made sure to say hello to a couple of people who I had not met before. But my goal was not to just go there and stand around taking selfies and, you know, trying to get status by who I'm standing next to or whatever. But I don't think we win by having celebrities and this kind of what do you call them, meet and greets and that kind of stuff. All right, well, I guess he's on the phone. Barbecue, you got anything else?
No, nothing that I can really think of.
All right, so it's something that I don't normally go into, but since Crump is in here, I didn't want to make it, I'm not trying to lean into that aspect of that characteristic of the channel or whatever, but I do it with intent, and, I don't see any need to have cameras running. And I've got bad enough bandwidth anyway. Like this whole time I'm running, well, I guess I'm not screen sharing. My bandwidth says it's unstable this whole time. Anyway, so with that, I guess we'll start wrapping it up. I'll do a quick, what do you call this thing? I call it a barbecue G3 sandwich. I should say a G23 sandwich. Now you can lay down some mayonnaise or some mustard or whatever else you might desire in this here. Oh, and since I have it handy right here, okay, so there's commercials over. So we already ran this one with the Patreon stuff, so we'll do this.
We would like to say thank you to owlandanchor.com for great two-way items like these. Go to owlandanchor.com and place an order today.
Oh, sorry about that, guys. That was someone calling who said they had some information, but their information was false. We'll be able to determine that within a second.
Oh, I see. Like calling in is claiming one thing and not being that.
Yeah. Well, no, they were just giving me a tip that there is an Antifa member by the name of Caitlin Coakley, and there's a guy that was really involved in the election by the name of Mark Coakley, and they're like, oh, they're related, but I was able to determine that they weren't actually related. They just had the same last name.
Oh yeah, see, that's the kind of stuff that nobody pays attention to, but how many times is that kind of, I'm going to call it a distraction because it might have been something, right? But sort of like fishing, you don't think about all the time you don't spend or you spend to just get that one fish or whatever, because the fish becomes the focus of it all. So it's like the articles and the results become the conversation, and everybody forgets about all the little stuff that gets eliminated or you have to deal with it, sort of the eventualities, whatever you call all that.
Yeah. For every hour that it's actually fit into, I would say about for every hour of actual good information I get probably 10 to 11 hours of bad information. So about 90% of the information I get is bad. If not more.
Just saying, let's all meet in DC for a DC project event. That would actually be kind of cool. So, I've seen the one DC project, I think it was from 19, just earlier in the year from the big 2A rally. A bunch of them showed up. I guess all of them showed up, or all of them that were going to show up. And then they got a bunch of pictures and stuff in front of the Capitol. But it was just them, maybe a couple of husbands or boyfriends or something. But it would be kind of cool to arrange support meet or a support rally just so that they have a crowd around them, somebody to say stuff at, and then they go in and do their thing. We can all just hang out, and I imagine we could probably get a permit where they let us set up like the shooting lanes over on the grass where we did the 2A rally, but then have the targets way down past that one statue, like down towards like the monuments or something.
I'm
so
pretty
we can
sure
get
they're
some
going.
distance shooting in.
Hey, you guys want to see something cool?
Sure.
I'm going
Of
to share
course.
my screen here. You
It'd be
can't
cool if
say
they put this up.
anything. This is secret stuff. All right.
Okay.
You know what this is? This is
This-
something that, yeah, this is something that, damn it, where the hell did it go? This is something that they claim didn't exist for a long time.
Okay, now I'm reading it. So armor piercing. That's always interesting.
No,
'cause,
this is the standard operation procedure of not only armor piercing. This is all of it. This goes into different things: armor piercing, examination of non-evidentiary firearm examples.
Oh, I see. Armor piercing was just the first one.
Yeah, this is Fat D's whole entire operation manual, which they've claimed for years didn't exist. But guess what? It does exist.
Oh, so did you see the thing that Jared put out today about the end run around 3D printing?
No, I didn't take a look yet.
Yeah, that's interesting. See how you guys angle on that one. Basically, I think in a nutshell, they're creating either a new branch or assigning responsibility to a different branch or something, and suggesting sort of like an ITAR that if you post a 3D printed blueprint or whatever they're calling a file, that you have to have some sort of license that costs X amount of dollars from this other department of something I've never heard of.
Yeah. I know exactly what that is. And I know some behind the scenes thing. And the thing is, they're just never going to issue it.
Right, like create the necessity to have the permit, and then knowing full well you're never gonna.
They're never going to issue one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of scummy. You know. Oh, we're still live.
Yeah.
Whoops. All right, you guys are going to see that tomorrow.
I can kill it. I don't care about having it
No,
streamed.
that's fine. I don't think anybody read any of that stuff.
I only barely said it, and we're 2 hours and 47 minutes in, and I'm got
It doesn't matter to me, man. It's all good.
Okay, but if it's going out tomorrow, then you'll be all right.
Yeah. The first article is going to be a bunch. It's a thing. But yeah, I saw that. Basically, they're just never going to issue the license.
Well, again, that's going to be. Well, they're testing. You know, the what is it? Liberty requires eternal vigilance is said in that way because it doesn't say like, you know, needs a revolver or requires a screwdriver, right? The tools and the techniques are always going to change depending on the opponents or the adversary's techniques and shit. So they're going to be challenging the whole, what do you call, like the people that are like, will not comply. Are they like trying to create some sort of electronic Wacos or something? You know, something like where you get swatted by the ATF, but uploading a file initiates it and not, you know, being, you know, somebody doesn't call 911 or whatever it normally is. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they attempt to do something like that. And just like when they go after the Remington, that's a whole nother one, right? We're not talking about news in here, but the whole concept of Remington given $33 million as if they had something to do with the advertising of their product, had something to do with that stuff, the atrocity. That's ridiculous. So that's going to be used for precedence, right? So some of this stuff is just, what's the word, frustrating? But anyway, it's It's the nature of the fight. You know, we beat them on one front, they're going to look for another front. We're not fighting a block of brick that can't do anything. We're fighting pudding. It's just going to keep running and oozing all over the damn place.
Yep.
All right, well, so with that, we will jump it or drop it. If anybody wants, I'll give you the link. We'll just go off air here. And you may or may not be the only people to see this, because like I say, I don't really care if this video's up. I'm not desperate to have a 5,014th video up or whatever. I can make this private. No one will stumble across.
No, leave it up, man.
That's all right. This just became like the Procter Gimbal footage. People are going to see that and be like, is that really Bigfoot?
Well, the thing is, the beginning of this video
really exists?
The beginning of this video is reading comments, and I went through, and that's when we discovered that basically the first 50 comments, 49 of them were Everytown's boilerplate. So there might be people that watch this video if they saw that and were sharing it around. So if you really don't care, again, it would take them to then watch 2.5 hours of this video.
I don't care. It's fine.
Okay. But anyway, I threw the StreamYard link out there. That means you can click on that and join in. I'll leave this open. I'm going to be doing some other stuff around the house here, working on things, but we'll leave it open for if anybody does want to jump in and for like some kind of midday off air. But beyond that, Night Strike just jumped in. That's guntube.org. How do I do this? That's guntube.org right there. So and also Tuesdays, Hit or Miss podcast, been going on for years. You can jump in and be part of that. You've got Barbecue over here who does 3 different podcasts each week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. He does a pretty bullshit ripoff of the Daily Gun Show that he's going to get sued for. And then on Saturdays, they talk about meat and other things. And then on Wednesdays, he interviews girls that are in the 2A. Then you got Crump over here, who's a reporter for Amaland and the Virginia director
for Gun Owners of America, your only no compromise gun lobby, where we fight against the ATF, FBI, and all the agencies and organizations that want to violate your constitutionally protected and God-given right to bear arms. There you go.
Like it. So here's the deal. I'm going to jump back to screen sharing and show this to Crump. I don't think you've seen this before, or at least I'm guessing you haven't seen this before. Now I'm going back, way back to my YouTube channel, which is right there. And then I'm going to go to my playlists in my YouTube channel, and I just created a new playlist for the best dude ever in the world, which is Johnny Rowland, right? And now I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to look for one. It'll only take me a minute. These are only ones that I've already gone in and indexed the shows so that I can go into the bottom of the show here and see what all is in there. And can I fast forward to the next one in the playlist? Look at how efficient YouTube is for us. And what I found is that Gun Owners of America helped produce this Johnny Rowland shooting show back in the 90s. It ran from 91 to 2001. And let's listen to this little bit of history from 1991.
This is Larry Pratt with a commentary from Gun Owners of America. Waiting periods can be dangerous to your health. Take, for example, these cases. Bonnie El-Masri of Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. Mrs. El-Masri was threatened repeatedly by her husband, who had a long record of abuse. On becoming convinced in March 1991 that her life was really in danger, Mrs. El-Masri went to buy a gun. She was told
that is awesome.
she would have to wait for 48 hours. Between the time Mrs. El-Masri tried to buy a gun and the end of the 48 hours, her husband killed her and her son. Igor Butorsky was a Jewish refugee from the Soviet Union back in 1983. He went into a retail furniture business in Brooklyn with a partner, and the two of them decided that they needed to keep a gun in the store. Weeks went by.
Okay, so that's Larry from 1991. Go in. I'll give you the link. Anybody that wants to go watch it.
I definitely want that link because I'm going to send it to Larry and Eric.
Hold on, I'm not done yet. And now we're going to go to another Johnny Rowland shooting show from 2000. And let me go back and refresh this. Now, keep in mind, these are all time-stamped. I've gone back, and I'll show you the show, but I've time-stamped all these so you can find them easier.
About crime without succumbing to demands for more gun.
Hold on.
Project Exile has been heralded as the way to do something about crime without succumbing to demands for more gun control. Project Exile legislation recently swept through the U.S. House of Representatives by a vote of 358 to 60. I believe that 358 representatives voted wrong. Project Exile is not going to decrease the demand for gun control. It is a call for zero tolerance and 5-year prison terms in the enforcement of existing gun control laws. Here are some existing gun laws. Attaching a 2 or more round extension to a post-ban Glock pistol magazine. Attaching a flash suppressor, folding stock, or bayonet lug to certain household firearms. Accidentally carrying or possessing a weapon with or without a state license into a federally prohibited area, such as near a school. Driving to another state to give a family member a handgun without going through the instant check registration scheme. Possessing a gun while subject to a restraining order, regardless of the absence of violence and without a trial or any legal adversarial process having taken place. Committing any minor infraction of any unconstitutional federal gun law. 2 very well-known cases of the zero tolerance type approach embedded in Project Exile are Ruby Ridge and Waco. At Ruby Ridge, federal agents killed a boy and a mom holding a baby. They came down on the Weaver family because Randy had sawed off a shotgun 1/4 inch under the federal limit, and the jury found that Weaver sawed it off because a federal agent persuaded him to do so and thus was not guilty. At Waco, 85 church members were killed over the possibility of a non-registered machine gun on premises. All that carnage based on federal records that the head of the records department admits are wrong 50% of the time. Project Exile also represents a transfer of street crime jurisdiction to the federal government, even though the founders very clearly intended for it to be excluded from federal control. The Project Exile bill gives money to states which agree to meet federal standards or turn their jurisdiction over to the federal government. Rather than Project Exile, how about a zero tolerance for all Second Amendment infringements? Let's have Project Repeal of all federal gun control. And from Washington, this is Larry Pratt.
Can you send me that one too? I was
Yes.
out at Larry's property like a couple weeks ago, shooting with Eric.
Right on, dude. So how cool is that, dude? That is from 1991. Baby Larry, I call him, right? And then decent, like that was out. That was a good, I just stuck my hand in the fan. That's a good piece of content back then. Here it is, 9 years later.
Yeah, let me ask this because this is for GOA. Is it okay if we rip that from your stream, rip that from your channel and put it up?
That's a good question. So here's the deal. Johnny Rowland Shooting Show is a thing that, do you know who Johnny Rowland is?
Yes.
Right, Johnny, the Rowland 460. So here's a channel I found on YouTube. I'm going to go to its About page and I'm going to read this. This channel is dedicated to Johnny Rowland Shooting Show that aired from around 1990 to 2001. I ended up with almost all the VHS tapes and masters from this show, as they were bought from a storage locker and bound for the landfill. A friend of mine brought them to me, and I figured so I will digitize them and upload them here. All credit goes to Johnny Rowland, who's now in Tombstone, Arizona. Thanks to Johnny for making the show. Johnny is also the creator of the 460 Rowland cartridge, which gives the true 44 Magnum power in a semi-auto platform. Clark's Custom Guns and Johnny brought this to life, and I personally love the round. It's a reloader's delight, much like the 300 Blackout and the 10mm. As you know and might have seen, Johnny is a very passionate person when it comes to life, liberty, corruption, and other views he shares on the show. So with that being said, the views expressed in the show are not necessarily that of the channel's manager. Everything here is subject to free will. Enjoy. So that's the story of this channel and the project. Johnny Rowland, from what I gather, is still in the business of being a Second Amendment advocate, but back in the 90s, I've been watching a ton of these. I have a playlist on my channel that has all the ones that I've done these. I've mapped out, the table of contents of what they've been talking about in the show.
Yeah, I might rip that out and throw that up too if Juliet of it.
Because I suspect at this point, I know Johnny, I've shook hands with him at the last gun rights policy conference. I was in person back in 2019, and they've cowered it away from doing it in person again. So we won't even have a gun rights policy conference in person until at least 2022, whatever. So I'd have met Johnny before. And I suspect he's not going to care if we promote a show that he did in the 90s. From what I've gathered, Johnny Rowland did this show. Johnny Rowland did this show. I'm sure they own it. They helped produce the show.
Yeah.
But Johnny Rowland did this show on VHS tape back in the 1990 to 2001. He did this on VHS tape at his property in Louisiana, which is near Shreveport. He would then give that to some satellite company who would make it available for syndication via satellite. So a lot of people don't remember when you lived out in the nowheres before cable, you barely had terrestrial antennas, and it was a whole different ballgame with broadcasting and terrestrial antennas and the coverage and the wattages of the stations and stuff. So satellite came in between terrestrial antennas and cable and other projects that have come in since cable and kind of filled the gap. And during that time, that's when HBO and MTV kind of got created. They were syndicated as channels on these things. So Johnny was like fighting at a time when technology was in flux and he was doing cutting edge stuff. It was sort of like VHS or beta or CD or cassette or something. And, he was doing a really cool project that encompasses a lot of what we see on YouTube today. And he had at least a 20% to 30 or 50, sometimes 100% focus on 2A. He did this show through the assault weapons ban. He did this show through all kinds of infringements, and he was aware of them and vocal about it. Gun Owners of America supported the show at different times. I don't think it was consistent, because there's times when he's desperate for funding, and there's times when he doesn't bring it up so much, and then there's times when they have their little blip in there and they say, we're supporting or we're brought to you by, and then, so I don't know what all those relationships were, but we see that Gun Owners of America was highly active in cutting edge, getting gun information out, in using First Amendment and technology to get stuff out there. Super cool. And you should hear Johnny when he starts talking about NRA. Like they have a very similar situation than we have today in 1990s. So anyway, this is good stuff. So I am assuming Gun Owners of America already owns all this stuff. Yeah, but I just wanted to give you like how I found it, so that they can know. Because obviously Larry's going to remember this, right? He knows the whole deal. Yeah, but anyway, so now you know how I figured it out, or how I found it.
I just sent it to Eric. So Eric Pratt, his son.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's the coolest stuff, because Gun Owners America says no compromise, but they've also lived it since the beginning, since 75.
Well, since HL started it, HL passed away not too long ago.
Right, but I'm saying since then, but there's not just like talk to talk or have to read some article or hear somebody's interpretation. I mean, here's visual evidence of them, not just like, hey, support us with $35. There was nothing in there about like, give us $35. What there was in there was remember Waco, remember Ruby Ridge, and don't vote for shit that makes walking across the street with a gun a permanent gun crime that takes your rights away, and gives the antis a fictitious gun crime that they can use against the next generation of gun owners. Like that was legit, honest, real 2A info.
Yeah, well, there is a here. I'm going to share something if
Sure.
if it's all right. And I'm giving us permission to play it.
I don't want to feel like you have to just because barbecue's pointing a gun at you, but go ahead.
He's not pointing a gun at him. He's pointing a rack of ribs at him. It's different.
All right.
I say that gun's clearly pointed more in the air. It's just kind of a general threat for everybody.
Here you go. This might be something that you might be interested in, G-Webs. Let me see.
We're still live.
Yeah, I think you will be interested. I know we're still live. That's fine. Here it goes.
In the wake of the Friday horrific massacre up in Connecticut, a number of gun rights advocates have argued that the problem isn't that there are too many semi-automatic weapons in society. The problem, they say, is that there weren't enough armed people on site to challenge the killer. Here's what Larry Pratt, the executive director of Gun Owners of America, wrote this morning in USA Today. In addition to the gunmen, blood is on the hands of members of Congress and the Connecticut legislators who voted to ban guns from all schools in Connecticut and most other states. They are the ones who made it illegal to defend oneself with a gun in a school when that is the only effective way of resisting a gunman. Is he right? Larry Pratt joins us right now. He's sitting right here. He's joined on the other side of the table by David Chipman, who's in the group called Mayors Against Illegal Guns. He's a former ATF agent. First of all, let's imagine my same question I asked about 9/11. How do we stop it from happening again? Exactly what happened on Friday. Larry.
Nothing's 100%, but certainly if teachers and janitors and principals were able to defend themselves
with guns,
they might with guns. They
you
might
would arm teachers.
I would allow teachers and other adults in the schools who can qualify for a concealed carry permit to be able to go into the school like they go into just about every other place in our country once they have those permits. But we've said, no. There's something really special and who knows what about those schools. And maybe the teachers just can't be trusted with a gun there. So we're not going to let them do that. Well, every one of our mass murders in the last decades, with one exception, was at a gun-free zone.
Which is where you're not supposed to bring guns.
Where you're not supposed to have a gun.
But you say if the teachers were allowed to carry a gun, or school administrators or janitors or a hired watchman even would be good.
It might have had a chance. It'd sure be better than sitting there like fish in a barrel.
David, your reaction. What's the best way to prevent this from happening again? The kind of thing that's now going on rather relentlessly in this country. They're called mass shootings.
Well, the first step is to make sure that anyone buying a gun passes a background check, right?
But the mother would have passed the background check in this case. The kid shot her in the face to get rid of her so he could have her guns. How would you stop it with a background check?
Well, I think that what we would stop is other people in other scenarios.
This scenario, this thing from happening again.
How would you stop it? Happening again.
If it happens tomorrow morning,
well,
a crazy kid goes after his mother gun, kills her, grabs the guns, heads to school and shoots a bunch of people.
Chris,
how do you stop it?
I don't believe guns are the answer. This is why.
Okay,
First
you can't
of all,
answer my question.
I believe I can.
How do you stop it from happening again?
I believe that you stop it again with reasonable legislation and empowering our law enforcement to protect people. That is my belief. And as especially
let's get particular.
Okay.
Which law enforcement officials were on site at the elementary school where all the shooting happened on Friday? Which law would there be a policeman on site?
Chris, what we do know is that the woman who was killed was heavily armed, and it didn't protect her. So all I can say is back from that is moving forward, there are many scenarios that aren't quite like this that I think can be stopped. One of the things I got to do at ATF is work with the United States Secret Service, the most heavily armed group that we have in this country. And they haven't used their guns to protect the president and thwart an assassination attempt since 1950. So what I'm saying is that I believe that the answer—
How did he say that with Reagan?
Criminals before they get
there. Exactly.
For law enforcement officers like I.
Are you saying that the Secret Service isn't necessary?
That's not what I said. What I said is their use of guns, shooting guns, is not necessary.
No, because their whole role is to cover and evacuate. That's what they do.
Okay, and so
they get the president out of there. Is their main job.
So possibly we need to think of strategies like that in school.
Let's go with another question, another direction here.
Hey, Chris Matthews.
Assault rifles. They're semi-automatic.
Right.
We've outlawed automatic weapons since the 1930s, since the days of Machine Gun Kelly. What's wrong with making the same rule effective? You need a special license to have a semi-automatic weapon. What's wrong with that rule, sir?
Well, we're talking about each little increment.
No,
slippery slope. Problem.
No, let's not get into slippery slope. Would we be a worse country?
Let's not get into it. We're going to stop.
Do you believe that would this be a less free country if you couldn't have an assault rifle?
Yeah, because we have guns fundamentally protected by the Second Amendment.
Well, wait a minute. Why would anyone? What?
I thought you'd hear that. Yeah, have guns in order to control the government.
And where have assault rifles been useful in controlling the size or direction or policy of the United States government in our history?
Well, the Brown Bess rifle was used to win our independence. The militiamen's
from the British.
Yes.
Let's talk about our government.
The militiamen used their militia rifles under Andy Jackson to defend New Orleans against the British. So
against the British.
Do have a history.
When have guns been useful in curtailing the power or purpose of the federal government?
Athens, Tennessee, 1946. Townsmen rose up against corrupt government and threw them out at the point of a gun.
Keep going.
Is that not enough?
I want more. I want to know where your head's going here.
I'm just telling you.
So you're like Sharon Angle out in Nevada, who said we need the Second Amendment rights when our politicians get out of hand.
That's what the Second Amendment is all for. She's not making that up.
So how would you use your Second Amendment rights if you didn't like the way your senator or congressman was representing you?
Well, we have a political action committee, and we try to beat.
No, but how would you use your Second Amendment rights, which you're now extolling?
By being prepared. We don't have to go and shoot anybody.
Well, what do you have the threat, though?
You know, I think it bothers lawmakers that we do have that capability, and sometimes they kind of let it loose when they're not quite in control.
So, Larry, it's not just the right to use guns to protect your home. It's the right to use guns to take on your government.
the government has been overboard.
So you're saying the menacing quality, I want to give you one more minute here. The menacing quality of the gun owners is what limits the size of the United States government. Have you noticed the United States government has gotten rather big lately?
Let's.
No, do you really think it's working?
The Israelis used to think la-di-da about having guns.
Oh, here we go.
They finally got it figured out, and after some Muslim terrorists killed a busload of kids, they started arming.
But anybody in
people
Israel,
schools.
I've read the reports on this. You have to be qualified. There's a whole rule you have to go through to get guns.
Concealed carriers are qualified.
Yeah,
They've taken the preparation.
Right. So let me get here. Let's go.
Let's say that they can't
let me go
be in
to
the
let me go
schools.
to David. David, this gentleman here primarily, I know because I have it in my family, primarily believes that the purpose of the right to bear arms is to defend yourself against a popular elected government. That's what they believe. They don't fear a 7 days in May military coup taking over. They mean the popularly elected government that they have to hold off. What do we say to those people?
Well, Chris, let's be very clear. And what he means is me. I was one of those people for 25 years, and I was in Texas when I heard on a radio someone said the way to solve this nation's problems was to shoot me in the head as an ATF agent. And after that, we had a president of the United States retire from the NRA. He wouldn't take it anymore. A line had been crossed. I don't believe most Americans believe that. I mean, I believe, and I think most Americans do, that law enforcement is here as a force of good, and we're the good guys. And that's what we saw in Newtown. And so when we get rhetoric like I'm hearing right now, I think this is extremely fringe. I believe that most Americans believe otherwise.
Well, anybody that worked in a gun control agency would naturally think that people that want to own their guns under the Second Amendment is fringe. That's how far to the left. And
when do you decide when the government's done wrong with your gun?
Well, when they steal elections,
no, when you decide,
that's what
who
happened
stole an election?
In Athens, Tennessee, elections were stolen, and that's when the people knew that the line had been
well,
crossed.
I hope everybody's listening to this. Larry Pratt, who believes that he holds guns to defend himself against the federal government, right, or local government, or any government.
That's what.
And
the
when do you
Second
decide?
Amendment's all about.
And who decides when to use the guns?
Well, we call up 9/11.
No, when
and
do
we
you
find out? You know, that's not something that we know until the outrage, like our forefathers said, after a long train of abuses. This is not something that anybody's proposing we rush right into.
No, we'll have you back.
Except your friend
I want to hear
Texas.
this argument. I want to hear this because you were Branch Davidian.
Nice, except your friend.
What?
With Branch Davidian.
I thought what happened to them was absolutely over the top.
And Ruby Ridge and all that stuff.
Sure, that was an abuse of government
Okay,
power.
thank you very much. I mean, you speak for a lot of people out there. Larry Pratt, for the gun owners.
Yeah, there was a different opinion of Waco at the time because the media coverage was basically solely through television, and I guess newspaper or something. But the distribution of info was different than it was now that we've got cell phones and the ability for everybody to take videos and to get information out in real time. So there was definitely a different connotation of the ATF in Waco. And remember, there was, what the hell was that thing called? Oklahoma City in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
So there was a fear of militia. There was the connotation of militia, and the attitudes towards ATF were different. And, they've aged differently, and people remember handpick the pieces they want and idolize the things they want and forget the pieces they want. So you know how history gets fuzzy. So we've got this like romanticized version of it, but that you listen to that interview from back then is interesting.
Yeah, because GOA has always been consistent on that.
Oh yeah, exactly. And okay, so that's from 2013. So they're talking about stuff from the 90s only because a Chipman was standing there and brought it up, and obviously Larry was around for all that stuff too. So they were kind of reminiscing or recollecting stuff that it was already like 12 plus years old back then. Yeah. Not only are they consistent, which is evident in those videos, but you'll notice that, that may not have been an appropriate place for it, but certainly the ones I showed you from Johnny Rowland's show, where they literally are supporting the show that they're playing their video on, and they produced the video solely for that. It wasn't like a video that they just made, I don't think. So anyway, even if it was a video they just made for syndication, what you notice that GOA's has, in addition to their consistency, is a lack of, what's the word, like being sucking up for money constantly. They let their action
we try to avoid that.
Yeah, well, they've never been like here, first throw us $30 and then we'll justify why you're selling us, why you're paying us $30. It was just we're doing what we're doing. There was no probable, I'm assuming there was no like goal to be like the giantest. They just wanted to be the no compromise one.
Yeah, it's like even today, we're not concerned about being the biggest or baddest gun organization, baddest in the go away gun organization in the country. We're not concerned about overtaking the NRA and stuff. We're concerned about doing what we do best and what we think needs to be pushed, whether it's through lobbying or if it's through like taking on the government and federal cases. That's what we're concerned about. If that helps us grow bigger, then that's a byproduct of what we are doing. But we are fighting back the way we know how and the way we think is best to fight back. And if people want to support us for that's great. But what we would really like to see more than financial support is people actually get involved with the actual activities and the actual advocacy, because that's how we're going to win. And we know that that's why we did, like, for example, HR 126, whatever it is, the crazy bill by Sheila Jackson that had all the crazy stuff in there. We never sent out emails saying, hey, you have to give us money or stop HR 126 or stuff like that, because we knew that wasn't the real threat. We concentrated on what the real threat is because we are afraid of burning out our people. So if we push like crazy threats like HR 126, which was never going to go anywhere, we were afraid that we were going to burn out people that are going to be writing letters calling the Congress people for something that never was going to pass. And then all of a sudden, when we do need them to call Congress, they weren't going to do it because they already did it for HR 126. So it's part of our strategy is to only concentrate on things that are actually have a chance, and concentrating on real threats more than threats we can fundraise on. If that makes any sense.
Well, it does to me because I've been watching it. So watching that over time or whatever, Night Strike said in the other side of the thing here about pretty sure the president retired from NRA due to Wayne. No, back then nobody did that. Nobody questioned Wayne. At least nobody was questioning Wayne in NRA that I'm aware of. People left NRA because of NRA's position on cop killer bullets and black talons. NRA decided, well, they weren't consistent and they react, right? They're not, there wasn't, we're looking at it with 2021 vision for one. Like it wasn't, this is during the assault weapons ban. This is in reaction and, in the midst of being in a literal hand-to-hand fight that was happening year after year. There was the Brady bill. Then there was the sheriffs here in Arizona and in Montana, or whatever, the Sheriff Mack and Prince took the Brady bill to Supreme Court, and they said, yeah, you can't drop all that burden on the local law enforcement. They don't have to do it. And then Nix came along, and we're dealing with that. All the organizations are dealing with one thing. They pivot, have to deal with the other. Assault weapons bans start happening all over. Handgun situations are happening. Somehow at the same time, we start to get concealed carry back, and everybody's jumping on that. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and I believe that the NRA was, I don't know. I don't really pay that much attention, but I remember my relationship with NRA went back and forth at that time as an NRA member because I didn't like certain things and the way that things were reacted to. But again, I don't know. You'd have to probably get somebody like Knox in here who was paying attention during that time because he was living it to give us a good summary of it, because I haven't seen it written down anywhere, any like substance. But basically, there was, I think it was mostly a situation of reaction. There wasn't a lot of strategy and like ambition. There was more like, how do we survive through this in one piece, or how do we survive through this and get bigger, which I think is what happened. But anyway, so what you were going to say something about why the president quit? We're talking about President Bush quit the NRA. He was a life.
I don't think Wayne was in his position during that time.
Wayne came in like 91, so yeah, I would have been right around something like that. But yeah, either Wayne would have been brand new, or like basically there was some, when Wayne came in, it was because what I understand, if I'm remembering right, Neil Knox was going to be the president of the NRA, and he was going to be more of a GOA stance. Like Neil Knox was constitutional, shall not be infringed. Let's bring the NRA in that direction. Wayne came along and brought in Heston and said the alternative to shall not be infringed is from my cold dead hands with Charleston Heston. Everybody will vote for that and give us money. And everybody was like, okay, because it's, do we either go into a fight or do we just reap money? And everybody was like, well, we're guaranteed to reap money this way, and we'd have to go work and fight that way. And we're not guaranteed, because that's not necessarily a popular opinion, to be like, you know, when the media is saying this bullet kills cops, and the NRA's like, yeah, we don't like that either. And then, you know, it's like, well, it's not killing cops, assholes. It's media hype. Like, it's never killed anybody. You're just suggesting that because you've seen a movie and you don't know shit. You know, the NRA could have said that position. So it was, you know, that kind of thing. And there was that kind of internal strife. And obviously Wayne won, but I was a kid. I was not paying attention to all of that as it went down. And it was only, we were only going to see a column in a National Rifleman. Who the hell was going to show us the other side of whatever was going on, right? There was no way to know.
Yeah, Bush quit the NRA because he objected to an NRA fundraising letter that described federal agents as armed terrorists dressed in ninja black and jackbooted thugs armed to the teeth who break down doors, open fire with automatic weapons, killing law-abiding citizens.
Where's that from?
I was reading on from President Bush himself.
Oh, okay, from his, yeah, because he wrote a letter or something about it.
Yeah,
he made a big deal about it, and that was his, like, again, this is interesting. I was just watching a documentary yesterday. It was like a 4-part documentary from BBC. It turns out it was from like 2002, but it was all about the guy, I can't remember his name now, but Freud's nephew who created public relations and like mass manipulation of populations and stuff, and how they figured out that they could sell, basically they sold women cigarettes. They go, hey, wow, you know, let's do this little stunt. And then all of a sudden women are smoking cigarettes and we've got 50% more people smoking cigarettes. And all of a sudden there's like all this new revenue and we're making a bunch of money. He plays that game a couple of times and sells products crazy, you know, in great quantity. And then politicians start coming around and saying, how can we apply some of this to politics? And it's a pretty interesting thing in the development of politics there. So going on to the 4th show of that 4-hour series, they start talking about how it kind of gets to be, how do you say, like layers upon layers. So once they figured out they could manipulate a bunch of people based on emotions rather than brains, like facts, or is it, you know, more effective to resort to emotional pleas? They kind of figured, in a nutshell, and I'm probably summarizing it bad, you know, they figured out, hey, if we build the people a cake, they're going to like that better than a loaf of bread, right? And then they figured out, well, if we ask everybody what kind of cake they like, and we find out that half the people like this and that, then we make, you know, this cake for them, we're going to sell more cake. And then the next level was like, well, if we ask everybody what they like, and we give this guy, you know, a taquito, and this guy an enchilada, and this guy a burrito, instead of everybody has to eat lasagna, right? Now we get even more feedback. And then they figured out pretty soon that, like, instead of like, I'm using analogies all over the place, but like instead of trying to create a cake that everybody's going to like, if we just offer everybody a kid-sized candy bar of their choice, right? Instead of like having to buy a big-ass cake, we can just buy a bunch of like cheap bags of dime-sized candy, and everybody thinks they're getting what they want, but they're only getting a dime-sized piece of candy of what they want. Like, that's the perfect politics right there. And in a nutshell, that's what this thing kind of went over. So this whole thing about like Democrat, Republican, it used to be like, this is what we stand for, and these are the people that we care about. And then they figured out that that's really difficult to figure out something that everybody likes. So now they just go around pandering. They go, hey, what do you want? Candy? Oh, here's some candy. What do you want? A licorice? Here's some licorice. What do you want? Some gum? Here's some gum. And then everybody says, they've given me exactly what I wanted. And all they've really done is handed out like 15 cents worth of candy, but they charged everybody for the steak dinner. And they're running money.
There is a couple people in Congress that are Second Amendment and like heavily Second Amendment supporters. I know one is kind of controversial with gun people because they think that she's pandering, but whatever. And that's Lauren Boebert. And I know that she is a Second Amendment supporter because I knew Lauren before she ever had any intention of running for Congress.
She was the restaurant owner, right?
Yeah, I've known her for years, but like before she even like ever considered running for Congress, a lot of people are like, oh, she. For some reason, people think that she just found the Second Amendment because of, she wanted to run for Congress. But knowing Lauren, no, that's the way she really is, and I'll defend her to whatever, because I know that she's not pandering. That's the way she really believes what she really believes.
Yeah, but I'm just saying the overall strategies or whatever have changed to where they don't need to follow through on anything big anymore because they don't offer anything big anymore. Their strategies, in a nutshell, have gone to more like let's go from a big cake that we slice up to like the bite-sized little candy bars or whatever. And what happens is you get less Democrat-Republican difference, because now they can both have this bag of candy and they can both go up to somebody and say, I'm a fill in the blank party and here's your gum that you wanted. And they can walk up to the next person and each say, I'm a fill in the blank party and now here's the taffy or whatever other thing you wanted. And that person goes, oh, I like the fill in the blank party because they're the one that gave me the taffy I wanted first. The other one gave me bubble gum. They didn't understand me. And that's the kind of stupid game they're playing. So now they just have to hire somebody to buy some gum and some trinkets. And then they go around spending the money on these steak dinners, that we all paid for a steak dinner. And we're all expecting to, like, we're going to, pay for the steak dinner now. We got a coupon for later on when we're older, right? And they're like, yeah. Here's your piece of candy now. And keep walking. So anyway, I'm just saying, like, that's changed the whole dynamics of politics. So what we're seeing is just so much development. And I just never thought about it that way. I always think of it on the surface of what they're throwing you on the news, not like thinking about it at that level of like how they're divvying stuff up and what they're actually offering and how they're talking to who. Because really the media decides what they're going to show. If they just show a politician talking to big groups, you think that all they're doing is talking to big groups and appealing to massive amount of people. But really, if they're walking around having a bunch of little, meetings with dozens of influential people offering those bags of gum and stuff, who knows how that's changing politics, really.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we've gone over the place with this one. We're at 3 hours and 27 minutes, 3:27.
Yeah, I jumped in when you were at like 30 minutes. So I was only going to jump in for like 15, 20 minutes. And 3 hours later.
Yeah, that's what happens. So there's been good conversation, though, good chat, and it's been participatory thanks to the people that have been out there. I just been scrolling through Instagram and saw that Georgia Carey posted something there about, what was it? That 7 retired agents who each had 25 years or more at the ATF just wrote a letter to the Senate asking them to oppose Chipman because he doesn't have the temperament or the experience. So.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to a bunch of people that work with Chipman. I haven't read an article on this because a lot of it was told to me off the record. So, they said, go use it, but just don't put my name on it. But a lot of people that worked with them basically called them, and I'm going to use some of the words they used: a clown, a buffoon, the fat guy everyone always made fun of, the smooth-brained kid in the back of the class. And these are words that they've used to me. I don't even know what smooth-brained kid even meant. Go look that up to tell you the truth.
Probably
so he's not popular even inside the ATF. So
oh, no, he's definitely not popular inside the ATF.
If he's not popular in the ATF, is this the kind of guy we want running the ATF? Because that's only going to make him more pissed off.
I went to try to find someone who liked him in the ATF just because I wanted to get like a balanced opinion. I already had my opinion of him, but like how he was viewed in the ATF, I couldn't find anyone. I mean, I went all the way back to people who served with them back in Waco. When that picture came out, I was told, no, that's not David Chipman. When he was in Waco, we basically told him to shut the F up and sit in the chair in the back of the room. and wouldn't let him do anything. Even from people on the ground at Waco said, like, yeah, he didn't. His part in Waco was very small because no one wanted him to have anything because they knew he would screw it up. So yeah, it's he was not popular in the ATF at all. But yeah, the smooth brain thing, I had to go look up because I was like, what the hell is a smooth brain kid in the back of the class?
It's supposed to mean stupid, I guess.
Yeah, smooth brain would be like I guess what is the politically correct word for it? A mentally challenged kid, I guess.
Yeah. But you kind of figure that's exactly what they want, though, is to nominate somebody who wouldn't play by the rules. You know, an administration that's adversarial to the industry that it administrates or whatever it regulates. They'd want somebody who's adversarial to the whole thing. They wouldn't want somebody who would, make it smooth or whatever.
I guess like apes have smooth brains because they're not as advanced mentally as humans. But basically calling them an ape. A dumb ape.
It's probably some old ass.
That is pretty bad. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, I had no freaking. I've never heard that in my life.
Apparently, McConnell doesn't like him either. So
Okay, well, with that, I guess we'll wrap it up. Like I say, it's been 3:30 now. I'll throw the link out there again. I got to go do some stuff away from the computer, though, so I'll leave the room open. And
I lost the Patreon. I lost a big Patreon too. One of my $20 Patreons. Damn it.
That happens.
I lose them all the time. I've lost so many. I've lost count.
Yeah, whatever.
But it's like, what do you call it? A lot of times it's, people only have X amount of dollars, so they'll.
Yeah, well, they wrote me. I was like, hey, I'm sorry. I want to come back because I'm having financially hard time. So.
All right. Well, with that, thanks everybody for showing up, and we'll be back to pick you up later.